Good evening, everyone. We've got 6 o'clock. Barely made it, thanks to Ada County traffic, but got a meeting over there, and Valley's growing. So let's go ahead and get started with tonight's evening. Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, March 26th. We're in the right place. We'll start with a roll call, please. Madam Clerk.
Garner.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Dapper.
Here.
Turner.
Here.
Kehoe.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Kirkman.
Here.
Selman. Here. Van Onker.
Here. Geez, everyone present. It's good. Communications, report on council actions. Rodney.
Chair and Commissioners, so we had several things happen at City Council that I need to report on. The first one was Baylor subdivision. You had recommended approval. That was the one that was just off of Lone Star, and is just several duplex-style buildings behind an existing home, kind of in a straight, narrow property. You recommended approval. They asked to continue it to the 1st of April. They asked for some modifications to the building to make it look a little less like duplexes and more like single-family homes. And then also we're concerned about the setback being 5 feet instead of 15, which they've recently adopted. So they asked us to, or the applicant, to go back to the drawing board to some extent, and that will be considered on the 1st of April. The next one was the cemetery. We just zoned that to IL. You recommended approval. City Council agreed. The next one was Wagon Trail subdivision, and that one was off of Victory Road just south of the airport, and that one you recommended approval, and City Council agreed and approved that with a development agreement. The next one was Lakeview subdivision. This is one out by the lake, and this one was just outside of our old impact area. We've expanded our impact area now. You guys, the commission recommended approval. The City Council disagreed and denied it. Their reasons were that it was not compatible with the principles of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan and potential negative impact of density and traffic on the wildlife in the area due to proximity to Deer Flat Wildlife Refuge. So the next one was a conditional use permit. Normally you would see those, but this one was a public storage, and so those go straight to City Council, as you recall, and this was part of the that development that was along Railroad Street and west of Happy Valley Road. So right on the bottom corner of that Reflections Edge, I think, is that right? Reflections Edge subdivision, they had a commercial property, and they're proposing some commercial buildings, and then some flex space commercial buildings, and then some storage units. And so that one was approved, and they had originally requested a variance because of being so close to residential. They didn't want to have that setback away from residential, but they modified their concept, and that one got approved. So the next one was a whole bunch of primarily grammatical corrections and formatting corrections to our city code and comprehensive plan. But that one, the City Council had a really late night, and so they decided to continue that public hearing. So that one's also going to be held next Monday. That'll be considered on Monday. You had recommended approval of all of those code changes and the comp plan change. And then finally, there was an appeal of Planning and Zoning Director's decision to revoke the Sunrock conditional use permit for the concrete batch and mixing, and I revoked that, and then the city council upheld that decision and said that I had followed code in doing it. So those were the items. Any questions?
Any appeals on the decision from the 27th?
We did. So that'll be going, we have it scheduled to go before City Council on the 20th of May. We've also received a legal challenge on my revocation, and then the City Council's confirmation of that revocation. So again, we'll have to just go through that process and see if it goes anywhere.
Thank you. Any other questions? Or any questions? Okay. Moving on. We will go ahead and I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda unless there's any discussion on that.
Second.
A motion by Kehoe and a second by Selman to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Seeing none, we will move on to public hearings this evening. Just before we start, I'd like to just go over the process for those of you who have not been at a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting before. First, we'll start with the applicant. We'll have the applicant come up. They have 7 minutes to tell us about the project and inform everybody on what they're looking to do. Then the staff report will be presented by the city staff. After that, and our questions, we will go to public testimony. So if you haven't already, if you're here for an item on tonight's agenda, go ahead and sign up in the back on the sign-up sheets, and we will take your testimony in the order that we have you signed up. And if you haven't signed up and you've changed your mind and you'd like to speak tonight, we'll make sure and give everybody the opportunity after we go through that list. So when you come up to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. As we are recording this evening and always, and then you'll have 3 minutes to give us your testimony. After we've heard all the testimony, we'll have the applicant come back up, answer any questions, concerns, address anything that came up during public testimony or anything they'd like to close with. They have 5 minutes to do that, and then we will close the public hearing, deliberate, and make a decision on each item. So tonight, we were starting with a subdivision preliminary plat approval for a mixed-use development and conditional use permit for multiple family residential in a GB2 zoning district for Baker Park development at 0 Cherry Lane, totaling 16763 Idaho Center Boulevard on 9 parcels, totaling 21.5 acres for Bonnie Layton representing Open Door Rentals, LLC. This is for a mixed-use development comprised of 22 buildable lots planned as 14 single-family attached dwelling units in 4 buildings, 10 single-family attached dwelling units in 5 buildings, 354 dwelling units and 16 multiple-family buildings for an overall count of 378 dwelling units, 1 commercial lot with an estimated 24,444 square foot commercial space in 2 buildings and 6 common lots. Is the applicant here this evening? Come on up and remember to give us your name and address, please.
Good evening. I'm Bonnie Layton with NV5. Our address is 690 South Industry Way, Meridian, Idaho, 83642. I'm here tonight on behalf of Trilogy Development and Open Door Rentals, requesting your approval of our mixed-use development conditional use permit and preliminary plat for Baker Park. Just as a kind of frame of reference where our project is located, we're essentially at the southwest corner of Idaho Center Boulevard and Cherry Lane. You can see on the left there, I've outlined the parcels that are make up our project with the red star. The future land use map designation for this is residential mixed use, which also surrounds our parcel, as well as some additional uses to the east of our project. Let's see. So the zoning map, as the chairman mentioned, we are zoned GB2. We do have, that's defined as gateway business. We have some RS6 to the west of us, RMH to the north and south of us, to the north of us. and then GB2 and U to the east of us. So, and we've also got GB2 to the south. So quite a lot of different zones in the area. Of course, this is a vicinity map where the red rectangle with the white star, that's our project location. You can see that there are a number of things. I highlighted just a few. College of Western Idaho is almost adjacent to our site in a couple different locations. Of course, we've got the Ford Idaho Center, multiple employers. We're about 1 mile and 1.4 miles from the interchange. So a very active area where there's a lot of employment as well as a lot of goods and services for our residents. Quick, easy commutes to, I've located Amazon, but of course just north of Amazon there are quite a few industrial buildings, bays that are out there. I'm sure you are all aware of how quickly that area has grown and how it's built out. And we believe that our project location providing residential close to these employment centers to be very key to the vitality of these businesses in this area and reducing the commute time. See. So overall, our site plan, as mentioned, is a mixed-use project. So our primary entrance is off of Idaho Center Boulevard. There's frontage improvements required along there as well as along Cherry Lane. We are not taking access off of Cherry Lane, but we are in compliance with what the city's engineering department had requested that we develop. So we do connect into, there was a stub street to our west, which of course we connect into. That main street that runs sort of east-west through the center of our site, and the road that runs kind of along in the western portion, those are 2 public streets. The rest will be internal drive aisles for our project on the apartments side of the project and into the commercial lots. So as was mentioned, we have 14 townhomes, 5 duplex lots, 354 apartments, 1 commercial lot. Our density is 17.48 dwelling units per acre. We have 6.11 acres of open space, which actually equals 28.26%. The required amount of open space is only at 15. So we're trying to provide amenities for our residents. Just click through this slide here. So again, this is how that site sort of fits into the context and the fabric of the surrounding community. Of course, there's the new roundabout at Cherry Lane and North Idaho Center Boulevard. And this is a more detailed version of where the townhome lots are located. Those are in the blue rectangles. We have a handful of duplex lots. The red rectangle on the right-hand side is where our commercial lot is, and the rest is part of our multifamily apartment project. We're providing some covered parking, a park with a tot lot, as well as a clubhouse and pool for our residents in this development. So really a place that they can recreate and they can live, and then also be close to jobs and to services. Walmart's right across the street as well from this site. I've put up some unit plans just to quickly go through. We have a variety of units for people to choose from. So we have 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. We have 3 different building plans that fit into our site utilizing those units. They're 3 stories. These are the renderings from Cole Architects on the elevations, sort of that contemporary modern look that you're seeing come throughout the valley. Building C is a smaller building, and those are the elevations for that. Again, back to the floor plans for the clubhouse. We've developed, we've had Cole Architects develop the architecture for the clubhouse and the site plan. So you can see the bottom image is an enlargement of just the clubhouse. the context plan above that shows the clubhouse with the pool and the outdoor amenities, really meant to be a gathering place for our residents. These are the elevations for the clubhouse that we have developed for the project. And that was pretty quick. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have regarding this project, and
Yep.
appreciate your time this evening.
I have a question for you, please.
Yes.
Trilogy Development, I know who they are, but Open Door Rentals LLC, I haven't heard of them before. Give me a little background, please.
Yes, that's an entity owned by Corey Barton.
So will they own the buildings and then rent them out to somebody else? What's the rental part? I don't get that part of the name.
It's just a holding entity, I believe, that he's purchased this land under. I do know that he does build some and run his own portfolio of rental properties, but I can't speak to what the plan is for this one. I would assume that's the case, but
Okay, close
yeah.
enough. Thank you.
I got a couple questions too. So the townhomes, are that going to be like a six plex building and a 8-plex building?
they're 3 and 4 unit buildings. I think our rendering is probably,
So 2 3-plexes on the one and 2 4-plexes on the other?
yeah, that's correct.
Did you think at all about, or did they consider, because that backs up to that other subdivision that's all single-family, doing single-family style homes on that, so they're a little more compatible with what they're backing up to?
So we did look at kind of the context of what that buffer condition looked like. We felt, and that's why we felt putting townhomes in those duplex units would be kind of that buffer for that zone. Let me see if I can, I thought I had one that was a little bit more zoomed in. So that's the plan that we have developed.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Parker.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. The action requested, the preliminary plat and then a conditional use permit. This will be approval or denial. The applicant covered a lot of the surrounding uses. To the north is a multifamily development that's already been approved. That's across Cherry. To the south is cutting edge landscaping. They have an office and a yard behind the building. To the east is Laguna Farms. That's a multifamily development with each building being on its own lot. And then to the west is Kensington, and those are single-family detached. The history here, this was annexed and zoned in 2002 to GB2. There was no development agreement placed at that time. Correspondence to the fire district, this is 2.3 miles from Fire Station 3 with a 5-minute response time. Impact fees for each home that would be collected for each home at the time of building permit, totaling $592,000. Increased personnel of 1.13 firefighter positions. The police department were recommending a commitment to fund 1.51 additional officers and 0.5 additional support staff. The engineering division had comments on utilities and right-of-way, capital improvement projects in the vicinity, as well as the approval of the traffic impact study, acceptance of the study that was done, and the mitigations that go along with that. And I'm sure there may be questions for Daniel on that, that I will defer to him. The parks comment requesting the developer dedicate a 20-foot permanent easement on the south side of the Purdom Gulch drain for a pathway. VRT requests 2 standard bus stops with concrete pads to be poured on Cherry, as well as on Idaho Center Boulevard. And then Compass had a comment about Cherry being a premium bus route as a priority in the Communities in Motion 2055 plan.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, quick question, clarification, if I might. Parker, on the impact fees collected for each home up there in the Nampa Fire District, will you remind me again, is that for each, when it says each home, is that each unit?
Yeah, so for each building permit pulled,
Okay.
there's impact fees that are collected.
So they're building a fourplex, that's one building permit.
Right. We did receive one public comment that was in the staff report opposing the multifamily units for this development. Looking at the plat, this is 21 and a half acres, 28 lots. I won't cover all those details as those have been covered already. Looking at the GB zoning standards, the minimum allowed lot size is 6,000 for 2 units, and then 1,350 square feet for each unit thereafter. So not necessarily separating duplexes from multifamily. But looking at those calculations, all the units meet the minimum lot sizes. The qualified open space, developments greater than 5 acres need to provide 15% total gross area in qualified open space. The applicant indicates that they're proposing 28.26% in open space. That number is a little bit deflated, as you can see on their plan there. They're including the landscape, islands, and the parking, and some of the unusable space. But taking all that out, it still exceeds the 15% minimum requirement when just looking at the qualified open space. The parking provided, this will be reviewed at the time of building permit, but looking at what they're proposing is 778 parking spaces. For the multifamily units, they would require 767. To accommodate the proposed duplexes and townhouses, those structures would need to provide 2 parking spaces for each unit within a driveway or garage. And that'll be reviewed at the time of building permit. It didn't look like those were included in the total parking count, and that was part of the conditions of approval as well, just so that we can meet that parking minimum. And then I included this code section. In the GB zone, we do require berming along Idaho Center, so that will be part of the requirement if you have any questions about that. The bulk standards for what we'll look at as far as setbacks for buildings, we can refer back to this if you have questions. We've looked at the elevations. Looking at the criteria for a conditional use permit, the conditional use permit is being requested for the multifamily residents in the GB zone. And the first criteria of a conditional use permit is that it's supported by the comprehensive plan. So looking at the future land use map of this designation, it's residential mixed use. The designation supports a mix of residential and commercial uses. However, the residential uses in RMU, residential mixed use, are intended to be more medium density, which is 2.5 to 8 dwelling units an acre. They're proposing 17.48 dwelling units here, an acre. There's a way around it in that the land use designation to the north is high density, which supports the higher density they're proposing here. We allow that designation to be stretched one parcel deep because this property is made up of multiple parcels. We'd want those lot lines to be removed so it's all one parcel, and then we can stretch the high density to cover this whole development. So that's a long way around this meeting the comprehensive plan, future land use map for this area. And that's part of condition number 2 recommended by staff. The recommended conditions are those in the staff report, as well as the recommended findings for approval. There's a potential motion, and I will stand for any questions.
Parker, I don't have a question, but I want to thank you for pointing out the differences in the open space, because I looked at that, I said, there's no way there's that much open space, but you called out the non-usable, so I appreciate that.
Any other questions for Parker?
I have a question. Parker, can you go back to the CUP page? That one, one more. Yeah, that one. So you mentioned there was a apartment complex to the north there, but you also mentioned there was one to the east. Why didn't that, how did that one get approved if it's not high density?
The one that's already built, this one?
Yeah.
So that one is in community mixed use, and I'm not necessarily sure the history of it. It's a different designation. Community mixed uses supports higher density while also some more commercial uses to it. So it's a different designation that supports higher density, essentially.
Gotcha. And so they're requesting high density, or could they pull in the community mixed use? They not care.
The piece about community mixed use that we wouldn't necessarily be able to fit on this is that at least the majority of it would need to be in a commercial development.
Gotcha.
And this is majority high density residential.
Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, we will move to public testimony. Madam Clerk, do you have a sign-up sheet?
We have 2 speakers signed up. The first is Amanda Van Gales, and the next is Neil Murphy.
Okay. Amanda, if you're here and would like to speak, come on up. Here. Van Niels was her last name? Okay. All right. We'll go ahead with Mr. Murphy, and then keep going. Just remember to state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi,
And you
Neil Murphy.
You got 3 minutes.
I live at 16620 Rosebriar Lane, Nampa. It's right down the street from this project. For the record, I'm 100% against this proposal. What is needed is more high-density units across the street that still aren't occupied. They look like military barracks, and they're going to put more apartments and cram it in there to a location that it shouldn't fit. And what is the proposed rent for these apartments? It's just a question I want to ask. Are they low-income apartments? Are they high-density? What it is? Has there been a traffic study to include pedestrian walkways, added stop signs, or a second roundabout? Because coming to the roundabout, there's an entrance on the west side and the east side for both these apartment complexes. And I don't know how the traffic's going to manage that, especially if you have an event at the Idaho Center or when you let out CWI. So I'm concerned about that safety, and how do they merge? You go from a 2-merge lane to 1. Right there is a exit. Now, I heard they talk about the city, there's an engineering study. It'd be nice to know that before this is approved, along with everything else. There's also a flow issue for a school bus. If a school bus stops there, it backs up traffic both ways. It happened the other day, so the roundabout gets backed up, Idaho Center gets backed up, plus it's unsafe for the kids, because if you're coming around that, you may not see that. The infrastructure can't handle the increased volume of traffic in a safe manner. Cherry is used for a way around accidents on the interstate. If there's an accident going eastbound on Garrity or westbound by Garrity, everyone gets off and gets on Cherry. and that just backs up that road. So it'll add a lot more traffic and issues there that are going to be a problem. I would also say Cherry is one of the worst roads in Nampa. Now, it's supposed to be fixed between fiscal year 25 and 27, but until we get that fixed, why put more traffic on it? And it's just frustrating that we keep continuing to build without the infrastructure that surrounds it. The area, we're going to lose more green space. I know they talked about they meet the standards. That's not green space. That's wasted space people can't play on. And it's a concrete jungle that was once a beautiful countryside. CWI is great. I'm glad they're putting in the agricultural center because we're going to still have some green instead of just apartments that are 4 stories tall and make it look like we're in a big city, which we aren't. I believe we need to slow down the rapid development in this area with apartments already slated on the north side of Cherry. We talked about it. Across the street on the north side, there's apartments going to go in. There's apartments to the west, and there's apartments to the east. And it shouldn't be designed for that. Plus all the other subdivisions that have gone in there recently. And I've also noticed those subdivisions don't put parks in for the children to play in. And if they do a little tiny lot. And this it says a tot play area. What if you're a 12 or 14-year-old and you want to throw a football or something? Everybody will go to CWI. Once again, you have to get over there. We don't know what CWI is going to do.
Share time.
Oh, thank you. I don't have
Anyways,
a timer in front of me,
against
sorry.
What?
Do you have a timer going up there?
I don't see it. It says waiting for speaker.
Okay, yeah, I'm having issues with I can't see the time. I should have started a clock.
It's more about money than taking care of people for the developers.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. The iPad? I can start my phone if you want. Timeout for IT. Okay.
Amanda back in there, anybody?
Yeah, I'll ask. Did the first speaker that was signed up come back, or is she here? Amanda Van? Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and I'll ask if there's anybody else in the audience that would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this this application this evening. Anybody else in the audience that would like to speak? Now's your time. Okay. I would invite the applicant back up to address the questions, concerns, and you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Again, Bonnie Layton with NV5, representing the applicant. I guess I would like to start by saying that it is very common that we hear people concerned about traffic. We are a growing community, and we take that very seriously as well, as does your staff. We did complete a traffic impact study for this project. With that study came recommendations. That study was reviewed extensively by your staff, and there are recommendations in the staff report and proposed conditions of approval outlining what those development improvements would be, not just interior to our site, but along Idaho Center Boulevard as well as Cherry Lane. So just wanted to be clear about that. If you want me to go into more detail on those, I can. They are contained in the staff report. In really looking again at the location of this project, in an effort to try to limit sprawl, which I know this community has really struggled with. Where are the growth areas? Where are jobs? How do we make it so that people can be close to the goods and services and employment areas, not have to get in their car? You can see, thank you. You can see from the context map here that I had, let's just get back to it here. As you can see from this map, obviously this is an area that has a lot of employment. It has a Walmart very close by, the College of Western Idaho. Their campus is small right now. They've got a building. You know that We anticipate that they will grow in the future. Amazon, as I mentioned, the industrial buildings north of Amazon, this is really growing out to be a place where people can live and work and get to work without getting in their car. We do believe that we've developed a site plan that complies with all of the requirements per the city code. We did look at a transition buffer along our western edge with the townhomes and the duplex lots to kind of transition from the single-family residential. I held a neighborhood meeting on this project. We had one couple that showed up and asked some questions. They were wondering about the impact of the connectivity. Of course, that's the stub street into their adjacent development to the west is a requirement. We believe that with the improvements that we'll be making along Idaho Center Boulevard, traffic flow will be enhanced through the area once this project is built out. Let's see. I think that was most all of the comments that I thought I would address. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. If not, I appreciate your time this evening and request your approval of our project.
How about pedestrian access around the development and
Yes,
roundabout
Chairman
and how that's
Van
going to be
Acker.
managed?
So we've got a series of, there'll be sidewalks throughout the project that will provide connectivity in and around the buildings for the apartments, and of course sidewalks in front of the townhomes and the duplex lots. I also do want to clarify that our project for those townhomes and duplex lots will have driveways and garages, so the parking for those units will be in those units. Those are front-loaded units, so that was not included in our parking count, but there will be plenty of parking for those residents as well. There was a request to have connectivity up on our northern boundary, which we are in agreement with, and really feel that this is a walkable community for our residents, and we've tried to place the site amenities in a way that they're not all centered on one end. We've got the tot lot and the park sort of in our northern portion, and then the clubhouse with the swimming pool in the southern area, so that there's really some options for folks.
So is that tot lot and park, excuse me, in between the two large buildings in the center there?
Yes, right there. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, is that like going to be all grass and
Yes.
what's that going to look like?
Yes, so in your package, you should have a set of the landscape plans that defines what we are planning for that. So there will be grass, there will be, surface around the play structure. Let me see if I can call that out. So just the various site amenities that we typically do in our multifamily projects like this. Is there something in particular that you were looking?
I just wonder, it's just hard to see from a landscape plan, so you got trees drawn and all that stuff, so I think I'm good.
I got another question for you. On the townhomes and duplexes, are those two-story only?
That is correct.
And there's only a vinyl fence there between the backside and those residential properties on the other, to the west, right?
That is
There's no
correct.
berm or anything there?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you know what the construction timeline is for the project?
I would say if we were to gain approval this evening and get through construction documents, I would assume that it would be, I'd hate to guess, late this fall or early next year, I think. I can.
Getting building permits issued?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to take some time to
Sure.
just develop the construction plans. So this isn't going to happen tomorrow. There's not going to be all the people living here tomorrow. But we do plan to move forward with this project should we be successful with an approval.
Cool. Any idea how long it'll take to build the whole thing?
I would hate to speculate on that. Let me see.
Come on, throw a number out.
Pardon me?
Just throw a number out.
Tough for the engineer, you know.
Well, I think it would be a couple of year build out. I mean, part of that might be market driven as well. But obviously the developer is well capitalized to execute on the project and keep this moving forward.
And are these market rate units, or there's no affordable or subsidized units or anything like that?
That is correct. They're market rate.
Just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
On the timeline question, any plans to phase this, or you're just going through all of it at once?
Yes, so we are planning to do it in 2 phases. So we'll start in the north and then phase down to the south. So kind of the east-west road dissecting the project as our 2 phases for the project.
Mr. Chair, question. I didn't see any response from the Valley View School District. I'm sure our staff reached out, and as typical, they probably didn't have a, was there one in there? Oh, I was looking through here trying to find it.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
Did you have any conversations with Valley
Yeah,
View School
that
District?
was my question. Did you have any conversation?
So yes, I've had previous conversations with Valley View School District. The owner of this property has actually donated a 12-acre site. I think it was a 12-acre site to the school district. So we are aware of the concerns of the school district. I did read the letter that was provided to just say the capacity. I know things are ever-changing out there, but we intend to be a good partner, and the owner of this project has been that with Valley View School District.
Page 138 after the fire comments. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we let you go? Okay.
Thank you
Thank you very much. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing unless you want to keep it open and ask staff any questions.
I do have a question for staff. I was going to ask them after, but I can ask it now.
We can close it.
In the, it's probably for Daniel, but in the traffic studies, are crosswalks ever included in those studies, pedestrian crosswalks? Because Idaho Center Boulevard is only going to get worse. And you got a lot of housing on one side, and you got that Frisbee golf course and park-like areas with the college and...
So typically, a street like Idaho Center Boulevard, we would not promote mid-block crosswalks, especially when you have a signalized intersection at Birch. You have the roundabout with the RFBs that will be installed once they get delivered at the roundabout at Idaho Center
What?
Cherry.
Sorry, what did you, an
The RRFBs, the rapid rectangular flashing beacons, the blinky lights.
Or the yellow ones.
Oh, the blinky lights.
The blinky lights.
The blinky
The
lights.
blinky
people
lights.
crossing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You have to
didn't know
speak
that's
our
what they were
language.
called.
Blinky lights.
Sorry, blinky lights.
Blinky light. Got it.
Yellow blinky lights.
And so we would not necessarily support a crosswalk outside of a signalized or roundabout intersection there, unless there were a pathway or something where a hawk signal were developed.
That's what I was
And in this situation, as I look at this, it doesn't appear that that would be warranted at a location there between those 2 intersections.
So are those typically considered in a traffic impact study?
So
It just depends on the situation?
they would be situational. They are not necessarily something that we would put in without being warranted with, existing pedestrian volumes or some other infrastructure that warrants it, such as a pathway or something like that, where you have a crossing that would need to be not at those intersections. So it could be something that would be considered in a traffic impact study. It's not something that was considered in this because there was not any of those circumstance that would warrant a look at that.
Okay. Yeah, I was looking at the police response too. There's quite a few calls out there in that area. That's just a comment, observational comment, no question there.
One thing I did want to clarify on the impact fees, the discussion of they are all paid at building permit. The rates are not all the same. So a fourplex will pay more than a single family.
I was wondering about that.
Yep.
Good.
Sorry, that was one I was thinking about.
All right, that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
So time frame, just looking at the TIS, Cherry Lane widening like 2030-ish? Best case.
So we have a grant-funded project to do a rebuild on Cherry Lane.
Okay.
And that's what was referenced before from the public testimony. That is one we are working with the granting agency to try to advance. If they have funding available sooner, we will, it's under design currently. So once that design is done, we oftentimes can advance that with the urban balancing when somebody else's project doesn't get, their stuff ready in time, so they can, once we've got a design done, they may be able to shift this to go a little sooner, but we don't know that until we're in that situation. But there is a grant that's been awarded, and we will be rebuilding that roadway. So there's a couple of different phases, and it goes from 11th, the first phase will be 11th to Idaho Center, and then I believe the other phase is from Franklin to 11th that is a little farther out, if I remember correctly.
Daniel, remind me, the Highway 16 plan, is that just the final phase of that? Is that just going to be an overpass over Cherry Lane?
So Cherry Lane, yes, there's no, in none of the phases is there a connection to Cherry Lane. The connections are every 2 miles, so there will be the connection at Franklin, the connection at Ustick, there is the overpass at Cherry, and that will be the ultimate configuration, is what they're building right now there.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, make the motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Kehoe, second by Daffer to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, public hearing is closed. That's my timer. Thank you. All right, appreciate
Parker, I
it.
got a question for you on that. Excuse me. By removing the parcel lines that are currently there, so they have one parcel, so they can stretch that multifamily all the way through the project, what's to stop them after they get this, to come back and then replat that so each building's on its own separate lot like we've ran into before, so they can get what they want now, but then
Chairman and Commissioner, the property boundary adjustment would be prior to the plat, because they are proposing this to be subdivided, just to meet the comprehensive plan.
And then another question, and I don't know if we could do it at this point, but because there was just on the news about a week or so ago, development that the homeowners are all up in arms because there was supposed to be a second pool put in, and the developer is not putting that in. Could we make that a condition that for this project to go forward, that pool and clubhouse will be put in by the time it's done?
You can certainly add a condition that a pool be a provided
They
amenity.
look really pretty on pictures and everything, but sometimes these subdivisions don't end up with what they're originally start out, and people buying
Sure.
homes think they're going to get this. So I just would, sorry.
A good start to a motion.
Still drives me nuts that they're going to make a left turn lane coming out of that subdivision.
Nightmare. I drive that every day. It's tough.
I don't know. I'm still struggling with the duplexes and those 3 and 4plexes up against a single family detached. I would much rather see
I'm surprised. I'm surprised nobody showed up to, I'm surprised it
Yeah.
wasn't
From that
more
subdivision.
From that subdivision that,
You know, if that was their single family there and then across the street they started it, I'd be a lot, or even duplexes all the way along there that are bigger lots and but those 3 and 4-plex buildings it's up against those other ones kind of struggling with, but I like the project where it's at really because it's close to the freeway, it's close to a lot of work, there's a lot of industrial that's been going in over there, so they're going to need employees. The school's supposed to be growing, so great access to the school. So I like that for that, but I just don't like to see that big multifamily right up against single family. But
Is the intent of the GB zone, the GB2 zoning designation, more tilted toward multifamily development, or is it more tilted toward commercial? In a mixed-use setting?
Chairman Van Acker, there's a GB1, which is more towards the commercial.
That's further down by
Which is,
the
yeah,
auto
where
dealers and stuff.
Walmart and Amazon and those are. The GB2 then is considered to be the transition zone that then takes you into that higher density multifamily kind of situation and then progresses into the RS. So that's really the intent of it, is to be the transition zone from the commercial to the single family.
Okay, I was just asking. Not a residential expert. Try to be, and then it gets dangerous. Be really nice to have some kind of a store right there. I'm biased because I live like half a mile from it.
there's a Chevron.
I'm sick of, yeah. Buy groceries at a Chevron. Okay. Any other comments, discussion, thoughts?
It's a lot. It's a lot right there that's already being added
It's a lot.
to.
That's a lot, there's a lot already there too.
I am sympathetic to the idea of building a lot of housing and stuff that's already close to the freeway rather than sprawling further out on the boundaries. I don't know that I believe her that people are going to be walking to work there, but shorter car trips are better than longer car trips as far as traffic's concerned. I don't know, I guess if I had to pick whether we're going to put multifamily on this corner or the northwest corner, I'd rather have it on this corner. But we already approved the northwest corner, you know.
And it's zoned for
Kind of.
high density.
Well, it's not, right? Well, it kind of is, right? They need a CUP to do it.
Comp
And the comp plan is, like Parker was pointing out, is up to 8, and this is 17.
Sure.
So this is twice as dense as the comp plan.
Yeah, I was talking about the stuff to the north.
Oh, right. So that was easier to approve because it was in the comp plan. I see what you're saying. You were saying my preference for where we should have built this is wrong.
I wasn't saying, I was just making a comment.
Fair enough. So, again, it's a lot, but if we need housing, I'd rather do it here than on the edges of town.
It's not going to relieve congestion there much at all, since Cherry Lane doesn't connect to Highway 16. Still going to have to go down and around, or down Idaho Center to Franklin. And that is not, it's a short trip, but it isn't, it's still going to be
It's a
long.
busy trip.
It's going to be a long, short trip.
Up to you, Stick, but
And I agree with you, Commissioner Morgan, that I doubt anyone's going to be walking unless they're running across
Well-
the boulevard to get to the Frisbee Golf
I mean,
Course.
there's places to eat on that side of the street as you walk down. Is that me?
that was you. You sound pretty good.
I'm Commander Van Gogh, and I was the one that was signed up, but
Oh.
I wasn't able to be here on time, but I did pat on the live chat, but I'll make
Bummer.
too late.
Yeah, we're closed,
unfortunately.
sorry.
We can open it back up if someone wants to motion.
I mean, we have to reopen, we would have to have her speak,
I
then
know
we'd
what
have to
do,
have
but
an applicant
did make an
rebut.
effort to get here.
I think we have enough to make a decision on what we got.
My comments were on the live chat at 6, but I don't think anyone's monitoring that.
Uh-oh.
Is anybody monitoring that?
What should we do, Rodney, or?
I mean, you're welcome to open up the public hearing again and have her speak. However, you'll have to give the applicant a chance to rebut.
Sure. Yeah, what do you guys want to do?
I will make a motion to open public meeting, open public testimony again.
Reopen the public hearing?
I'm probably okay with this, but it is unusual that we're going to give the applicant a chance to rebut after she's already been able to hear a bunch of our discussion. That's atypical, but
I
Well, we have
tend to
to,
agree.
though.
We've already made,
we don't have to
Well, we can,
reopen.
the motion.
No, we don't have to reopen, if we reopen.
That's the
Got it.
consequence of reopening the public hearing.
Yeah, yep. We have a motion on the table to open
And it was seconded.
public testimony in a second by Matt. Sorry, Commissioner Gardner. All those in favor of reopening public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's roll call that vote, please.
Garner? Miller?
Aye.
Daffer?
Aye.
Turner?
Aye.
Kehoe?
Yo,
I know, but what was the motion to?
the motion's to reopen
No,
public hearing.
No.
No, okay.
Morgan?
Aye.
Kirkman?
Aye.
Selman? No. Von Acker?
Aye. Okay,
Motion carries.
public hearing is now open. You're welcome. Please state your name and address for the record and tell us what's on your mind.
Amanda Van Gils, 17061 North Wiley Place, Nampa. So I'm on Cherry. My subdivision's on Cherry. And so that's my freeway entrance. So I have concerns, several concerns. One is traffic. So I understand that a traffic study has been done. I don't buy it. I don't buy that that's going to alleviate the issue that's already there. If anyone's tried to go to the freeway, to go to Boise to work, or to come back, you'll know that, it takes 15 minutes at that freeway entrance to get on and off the freeway. So, what did they study? They studied right in front of CWI. Well, that's not the issue. The issue is elsewhere. Second, I heard on the meeting that Valley View District, you think maybe submitted something. Sorry, I'm a little out of breath because I ran from the car. I don't know if you ever found those comments, but Valley View just had to submit a bond 3 times to get passed to build a new elementary school. It finally got passed on the 3rd time. Each of those efforts by Valley View District cost money, and that's the only way that the schools can get the funding that they need to build something new. So this is going to bring 478 units to Birch Elementary, which is already at capacity. So are they addressing this? Did they address this? So I'm really concerned about how Valley View District is bursting at the seams with students. We finally got the money to build an elementary school, which will just alleviate the issue that's already there. So we're just adding to the issue without addressing the long-term plan. And then, sorry, I'll turn that off. Sorry, that's my mother calling. She was my backup childcare plan, but it didn't work out, clearly. sorry, I can't think of my third point, but those were my two major points. So I'm just really concerned. I feel like developers are getting to build all of these huge complexes, but the amenities, things aren't really getting addressed. And I feel like our public services are really stretched thin. I also don't buy the whole walking to work. Like, Amazon is not walkable distance. Like, maybe they can ride their bike, but that's not walkable, and that's not what's going to happen, I don't think. And and if that's the case, if this is apartments for Amazon, then okay, ask Amazon to build a school.
Time, Ms. Van Gils.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the extra time.
Yep. Okay. See, applicant like to come up, Ms. Layton, come up and address the comments if you'd like to, or anything else.
Thank you, Chairman,
Hold
members
on.
of the commission.
1 second. Yes.
I didn't sign up to talk on this, but I would like to.
Okay. Come on up, please state your name and address for the record.
Should have clarified my motion a little bit more detail.
My name is
Okay.
Danielle Monte. I live at 115 Almond Street in Nampa. I have worked as a CDL driver here in Nampa for 2 years, and I delivered to the cheese factory, and the traffic there is horrendous. I cannot count how many times people have cut in front of me, tried to drive underneath my trailer, cut me off at lights. It's super dangerous there now. That traffic is not going to go away. The amount of commercial traffic that goes to Amazon, Pepsi, and to the cheese factory is astronomical. How are them trucks going to get around with these people clogging up the streets? It's hard to get from Sorrento to the freeway. It takes 20 minutes. I think that you should really reconsider having all those people in that area, residential, kids, people on their bikes, people walking, cars. People just do not pay attention to large vehicles. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else like to speak
You got another one?
on this
You got another one?
application? Come on up, state your name and address for the record.
My name's Eric Fondren. I live at 16760 Idaho Center Boulevard. So I have pretty good knowledge about that traffic situation. I've been there for 22 years. I own another property down in off Birch Lane in a subdivision. I still own that home as well. When I moved there, there was only a Chevron, and that was it. And I watched the CWI get built. I watched Idaho Center get finished. I watched all of the construction of all Walmart, all the dealerships, all the lights. So that the property that you were not wanting or suggested that wasn't a better option, this one was, is true. And I don't really speak on what people can and can't do with their property, like development, because that's what I kind of do. But traffic issue is an issue. They walk in front of my house, and they got a stroller. And my dogs run up and their dogs, and then they do the whole mingling thing, and that's not a big deal. But I'm there pretty much most of the time. I'm retired, so I'm there doing whatever I'm doing on my own property. It's about 1.5 acres. It's just that one little square you see right across the street. And I know people will walk across the street, and I know this because I see them not walking across the street there, but I see them walking across the street where those other apartments are further to the south, and they go right over to the college there, and they play soccer, and then people park on the side of the roads, and they cross that road right there all the time. And I also know that there is plumbing in there right at Achievement for streetlights. They've already thought that. They thought that in. I don't know when you guys did that one. I think that was when they built that landscaping business that's there to the south of this project. They built that for the original owner of that property, and that was the stereo installer back in Boise, Carphonics. I watched that go in as well. They've dug up my road, I think 3 times or 4 times now, and I love it when that road closes because it's my own private driveway. But when they open it up, and it has improved because I've seen cars, we used to come home and there'd be cars nonstop from the stoplight all the way down to past Birch. And that roundabout did a lot until they start closing 11th Avenue, and then they start closing Franklin Boulevard, or there's a wreck on the freeway and everybody gets off at Garrity and they go shooting right past my house and here come all the cars. And that doesn't necessarily bother me, but sometimes when I roll out of my driveway, I've got to turn right, do the roundabout, and then go back to the freeway because I can't get across. And that's really not a concern of mine. I'm just wanting to let you guys know that I've been watching this place for a long time. I've seen it grow, and putting something across the street is going to get people coming across because there's nothing really over there except for that little bar diner thing and whatever, and then the college. That's all I had to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Anybody else like to speak on this before we bring the applicant back up? All right, Ms. Layton, come on up.
Thank you again, Chairman and members of the commission. Again, I thank you for your time this evening. We do hear all the time concerns about traffic. We are a growing community. We do take that seriously. We did an extensive traffic impact study, the scope of which was approved by your engineering staff. So there was a lot of feedback from staff. It takes in not only our project, but development that's happening in the surrounding area to put it into some context. So I would hate to opine on all of the plans that the city has. I think staff can do a much better job at that, but we are definitely here to do our part to help make those improvements in the community. And oftentimes it's improvements that go along with developments like this where right-of-ways get widened and roundabout or land for roundabout is dedicated. I've been before this body and others like you throughout the valley, and so that's very typical of what we do. In terms of the Valley View School District, I have very personal knowledge of the struggles that that Valley View School District faced with their bond issues. I do want to say that, yes, the school district is unable to actually spend funds to promote those bonds. And actually, it was folks like myself in the industry, along with a number of other people and businesses within the community that put forward money and effort to help Valley View get that bond passed. We believe that schools are a very important piece of our community. This property owner has donated, I misspoke, it was almost 13 acres to the Valley View School District for a new school site. We are really doing our part. Again, with the location of this, we're trying to be mindful of where the jobs are. Maybe people won't walk, maybe they will ride their bike, maybe it's a shorter trip in their car to a job. The buffering between the residential, I think Christy spoke to that pretty well as well. We felt like we felt that the townhomes and the duplexes were a nice transition between the single family and our apartments. So had we put single family there, we would be having single family lots looking right onto the multifamily, the higher density. So that's why we did the density that way, to transition it. As I mentioned, we had two folks show up, a couple from our neighborhood, or from the neighborhood to the west. But really, we're trying to provide quality housing, market rate housing, and contribute to not only the community, but also support the local businesses in the area that are looking to hire folks. So with that, I can stand for any last questions you may have for me.
Okay, any questions?
I do.
All right.
Just to drag this out a little further, just to clarify on the scope of the traffic impact study, did that include the interchange with I-84?
I believe that,
Okay.
I think staff would be better to answer that. And I do want to clarify that the clubhouse and pool would be part of the first phase of construction. So just so you know. And that would, looking at the timeline in a little bit more detail, I think construction would start next year. So just for clarification.
Would you be amenable to a development agreement for all those amenities?
I think those could be part of the condition of approval. I don't know if it needs to be necessarily handled in a development agreement,
Mr.
but I would
Chair.
defer to staff.
I would discourage a development agreement in this place. We can't legally require that if it's not a rezone or an annexation, but you can put the conditions on there.
Okay, thank you.
That's all. I'm done.
All right. Anybody else? Thank you for coming back up.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
We'll set up a public hearing for it. Daniel comes back up.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, motion to close. Do we have a second?
You want to hear from?
Yeah, we'll hear from him.
We can still second.
Okay, we had a motion from Commissioner Morgan, second from Kirkman to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, public hearing's closed. Daniel?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Morgan, the traffic study was scoped based on the vehicle trips. It did not require them to look at the interchange. I can tell you right now that the interchange is a background issue, and their development would not trigger them to have to improve that. That's an existing issue that we cannot require the developer to fix. The implementation and construction at Highway 16 will relieve some of that traffic because it does give other points of access to the freeway. The city is also working with other jurisdictions around to work on a southerly connection for Highway 16 that will also decrease the demand on the Garrity interchange when it goes in. That's not necessarily a short-term plan. That's a significant investment that the city, other jurisdictions, and ultimately the state will have to undertake. But we are actively working on those things, and so there are things happening that will ultimately improve Garrity by pulling traffic away from that and giving the other opportunities for access to the freeway in that area.
It's my impression, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, that will this help the pressure on Garrity coming from the north as much as it will coming from the south? Like for this development specifically, are they going to go to get on the freeway any other way?
I would anticipate that if people from this development need freeway access, they would be going to Garrity. Yes.
I guess maybe a better way to ask that is, will it be relieving pressure from the north access onto Garrity, or like who is not going to be coming from the north anymore once we get the Highway 16? Is it just the people closer to Ustick?
So there would be a number of people from, so there would be people that would be able to go on Ustick and get onto Highway 16, take Highway 16 to the freeway and get on the freeway that way. That's some of that relief that will come once 16 is in place.
But that's almost it, right? Like all these developments that are right here on Cherry and Franklin are going to be, well, maybe not Franklin, but.
Right. I would not anticipate that these properties at this location would go up to Ustick over and down 16 to get on.
I would.
And you know, there may be people who do that. I don't know that I would count on that. But once again, the issues at Garrity are a background issue. Sure. They are an issue that are there today, and they are not something we can require this development to mitigate.
Sure. But it could be a factor in whether or not we grant a conditional use permit.
That is certainly part of your purview to consider.
Any concerns about them making a left turn out of this development?
Looking at the traffic study in that, there's not necessarily, if at some point that does become an issue, that could be restricted to a right in, right out. But that would be something that would come in the future based on actual operation of that of that area.
And just for my curiosity, yeah, how do you monitor that? Like what triggers a study?
So yeah, we
Is it
would
accidents?
review accident history and those types of issues.
Somebody's got to get in a wreck first.
Yeah.
So, never mind. I'm gonna.
Sorry, I shouldn't have said
Never
that.
mind.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Daniel.
Yep.
Okay, we're closed. Any other comments?
It's a big project. I like the area that it's in, and I keep looking at those criteria for conditional use permit, and really the only one that I have that maybe gets to that level of maybe or not, that I agree with it is the proposed use will be served adequately by essential public facilities and services, and I think that streets and roads are part of that. However, that's where it gets really close to whether or not I would not approve this. But it's not at that threshold yet. It's mighty close, though. All the other ones fit. So it's a close one for me, but I'm in favor of this on that corner.
What about number 5 of
Hesitantly.
excessive traffic?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Process materials, conditions of operations, detrimental. Oh, I didn't even see the X. Well, that's subjective.
That's another one that's right on that same line. Right?
Excessive is subjective, yeah.
But if you were to do something like this even farther north, then you're still, it's all going to get there eventually.
Never.
So,
Oh, right.
So the closer we can get it, the less traveling that people are going to have and the less congestion. Granted, my office is right there at Idaho Center Boulevard in Birch, so I know exactly what everybody's dealing with. So, but I would rather have it closer to the freeway than farther away and still end up with the same traffic mess at the same spot. Just people are driving 3 miles farther to get there now instead of 1.5 miles. So, but
We'll be paying impact fees to fund our infrastructure capital improvement plan. And these are tough decisions, but
and the CWI builds out, this is a great location for
Absolutely.
students to be able to just get across the street to go to CWI as it builds out. But
I live right over there. I never take the freeway
nope,
Take the freeway every day.
unless it's the middle of the night.
I go around and over 11th and
So-
the back way.
Can we condition a pedestrian bridge over?
Nope.
No?
Thought about that, but, well, Mr. Chair, if no one else has any comments or questions, I'll make a motion that we approve this subdivision preliminary plat for mixed-use development and conditional use permit for multiple family residential in a GB2 zoning district for Baker Park development at 0 Cherry Lane and 16763 Idaho Center Boulevard. On those parcels for Bonnie Layton, representing Open Door Rentals LLC, with recommended conditions, and adopt the potential findings in the staff report. And before I get a second, do you want me to add the swimming pool and the clubhouse?
Please.
Okay, and with another condition that the swimming pool and the clubhouse absolutely will be built in this development.
We have a motion by Kirkland and a second by Gardner.
Chairman, can we get a clarification on when that pool needs to be constructed by?
You said in the first phase. Yeah.
Right, we still have a motion on the table and a second by Gardner to approve this item. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, and we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
First, all the workers, construction workers in the summer.
All right, the second item on,
Was that a conditional use permit? Do we need to read that conditional use permit deal?
Yeah, thank you.
Bonnie, hold up. You got to hear this.
You gotta hear this.
You got to hear this. It's really important.
Your your conditional use permit will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period is concluded, and you are responsible to confirm with Planning and Zoning staff there's been no appeals. So, thank you. Thanks.
That was worth
Gardner.
sticking around, wasn't it?
All right, the second item on tonight's agenda is a conditional use permit for a group care home, 9+ beds in an RS6 zoning district at 819 South Powerline Road for Rihanna Monteguino.
Well, she's standing
Nino.
up there, so she knows
Nino.
who it is.
How do you say your last name?
Yeah, it's Montanino.
Montanino?
Yeah.
G silent, all right.
Silent.
Got it. For an addiction treatment home for up to 16 people. 7 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. and-
Mr. Chair, can we
Yep.
hold a moment? I'm having technical difficulties.
Okay, hold on a second. Like an IT problem? Oh. Sorry, you don't get to go tonight. I'm just kidding. We'll figure it out.
But thanks for coming.
We have a good history of continuing public hearings. It's well received.
See you in 2 weeks.
Involuntary.
Good? Okay. It's going. It's almost there. All right, thanks for your patience. Go ahead and state your name and address for the record. And
It's
tell us
Rihanna
what you're-
Montanino, and it's 819 South Powerline Road, Nampa, Idaho, 83686. So I'd like to thank you all for your time, and especially the members of the public that are here tonight, and then tell you a little bit more about our project. So we're applying for a conditional use permit at that address to put in an ASAM 2.5 level PHP program for substance use disorder. So I would like to give you a little bit of background on what the PHP 2.5 level is, because there seems to be some confusion. So it is a level of service that is in the setting of a controlled residential facility that provides 24-hour support and structure, and that limits access to alcohol and other drugs. And so what that means is this is not a halfway house. It's a 24/7 highly controlled, supervised environment. Clients are only allowed to leave if they are in the presence of staff. We do have cameras. During the day, for a minimum of 6 hours per day, they are in class and treatment, and then there are also individual counseling sessions that happen. In the evening, they are in a very structured environment where they are going to 12-step inside the facility and also doing their homework and their chores, learning living skills and improving that. There's not going to be, people aren't allowed to come and go. There's not ad hoc visitation. No cell phones are allowed. They can't provide their own transportation to and from. So it's a very structured, very controlled environment where they will not be coming in and out of the building at all hours. The main treatment is for substance use disorder, so that is drugs and alcohol. And at the PHP 2.5 level, that is a mid-range treatment for addiction. So you have people that have already been in residential inpatient treatment, so they are actually coming down, or people that have a lower level of substance use disorder that don't require detox services or more severe medical necessity or have more severe comorbid disorders. So the clientele is in general on the mid-level range. There's not going to be all the craziness that comes along with detox or acute withdrawal and things like that. So we will have a minimum of 4 staff. That's required for a maximum of 16 people. It's 4 clients per one staff member. And then we are in the process of adding privacy fencing to the sides of the property. I know that had come up in previous conditional use permit applications. And then we do have auxiliary parking on the whole side of the house with gravel. So that's about it.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant right now?
I have a few of them, yes.
Okay.
You mentioned treatment programs, and I think you said alcohol and drugs, is that correct?
Correct.
Alcohol is a drug, of course, right?
Correct.
All right. And what else besides that? Will sexual
No.
deviant behavior?
No, substance use disorder only, yeah.
Just those two, basically? Okay. What about if I'm a resident and you say, hey, Steve, it's time to go to your class, and I say, hey, I'm not going, I'm leaving. How can you keep me there?
So we do have policies and procedures in place to execute a discharge summary plan. So obviously we can't stop anyone from just walking out the door. This is voluntary treatment that people have chosen of their own accord. This isn't involuntary. But we will engage every method we possibly can to say, hey, here's your discharge plan. Where are you going? What do you need help with? And execute it that way rather than just letting someone walk out the door.
There's no way can you physically use force to stop them, or would you not do that anyway?
We can't use force to stop them. Right, it is voluntary.
Where do these residents come from? Are they doctors recommend them or help?
Doctors recommend them. They can come down from a residential inpatient hospital program. A lot of times, the way it works with us is residential inpatient usually lasts about 30 to 90 days, right? But then it's very difficult to get a transition in there. So when a client leaves residential inpatient, they're kind of left to their own devices. And that's why the ASAM has all these different levels of treatment to scale it down. So when someone is leaving residential inpatient, they have partial hospitalization where it's a little bit less of medical necessity and medical treatment, but you're still getting the 20 hours per week of therapy and education and learning new life skills and other skills that help with daily living. And so this is like the transition area before a person with substance use disorder would go into more of an outpatient type program.
How long have you worked there?
We haven't started. We're working on starting, so.
Well, this has obviously been there before, because in 2012, there was a conditional use permit for the same residence.
Correct. This has been like an assisted living facility and all sorts of other things before us. So we are the new owners, but it has been under a conditional use permit since 2006 as an assisted living facility or other. Yeah.
Are you familiar with a condition of that original conditional use permit that you installed a fence?
That was the previous owners. We are aware of that, and that's why we're in the process of installing a bigger fence, privacy fence.
And what type of fence is that going to be?
It matches the neighbor's fence, so it's like black metal with the wood. It's really pretty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see, of course, it's more for you, or, there's signatures here. I assume it's your signature, but the signature looks like R. Motz. Is that you?
It's a really long last name.
Shorthand.
Okay, so that
I know how that
is
works.
you, though.
Yes, that is me.
Okay, that's all the questions I had for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a couple of questions. Will any of the, clients be on supervision, felony supervision?
No, that's actually excluded at this location.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And who oversees this? Is it ultimately health and welfare, or are you getting funding from Optum, or where's some of the funding coming from?
So some of the funding comes from Optum and also private insurance. So.
Okay, so as far as what's the word I'm looking for? Overseer, oversight, yeah, thanks. Oversight's the word I'm looking for. Does that come from Optum then?
It comes from Optum, and then for private insurances, we need to be credentialed through the Joint Commission. Yeah.
And are there licensing requirements, and do they check on the licensing? I guess what I'm asking is, it's going to be well-regulated?
It is. It's an extremely well-regulated industry. There are several different credentialing agencies. We're working on the credentialing process with all of them. We won't open until we're credentialed. And that Optum, that's like your Idaho Medicaid and everything. They have a very rigorous set of quality standards that we have to abide by. And then the Joint Commission, which generally oversees private insurance, also has a very rigorous set of quality standards, and we will maintain compliance with those.
Okay. So no, will there be juveniles also,
No.
or no?
No.
Okay. So just adults, nobody on supervision, probation, parole, anything like that?
No.
Okay.
And as part of the screening process, with our policies and procedures, if anyone poses potentially like a direct threat to the community, then we're not the right facility for them. They need a higher level of care.
And there's going to be live-in resident?
Correct.
How many, just one?
Well, yes, that house manager is going to be
House
the live-in, and then everyone, the clients will actually live on site
Sure.
too. We're not going to treat people from the public. It's going to
Right,
be.
but one of them's
yeah.
going to be a house manager.
Correct. Mhm.
Is that for the 9 beds? If there's more than 9 beds, will there be 2 managers, 2 house managers, or just one?
It's one house manager, and then we'll have techs on 24/7 also. And then during the day, during the normal business hours, we'll also have the counselors on staff there. And then we do also have a medical doctor and a clinical supervisor, and
On site?
they'll be coming in and out as needed, yeah.
Okay. That's all I have for right now.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Christy, staff report.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I am Christy Watkins, Principal Planner for the City of Nampa. The request before you this evening, as stated, is a conditional use permit for a group home for 9+ beds. The comprehensive plan is medium-density residential, and the zoning is RS6. It is completely surrounded for quite a distance by RS6 zoned properties. As stated, there has been an assisted living facility in this property since 2006. In 2012, there was a CUP approved for an expansion to more beds. In 2023, there was another conditional use permit approved for assisted living. I don't believe that went forward, and then it sold, and now she's asking for this. There are already public services available to the property. So in the comprehensive plan, we talk a lot about the Fair Housing Act. Fair Housing Act, both federal and state, prohibit discrimination in housing based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, familial status, and disability. In this case, they would fall into the protected class of the disability. Fair Housing Act also covers land use and zoning decisions. So in our code, we define group residence as a dwelling unit which physically or mentally handicapped or elderly persons legally reside as a single housekeeping unit who are supervised at the group residence in connection with their handicap. A group resident is a permitted use in all areas where a residential use has been entitled or permitted. This does not apply to transition homes. As she stated, there would not be sex offenders on site. We do have provisions that if there were to be any, that there could be no more than 2 at any given location for registered sex offenders. So in this case, we do have home occupation requirements that talk about bringing in employees. In this case, a licensed group home is allowed to have employees based on their licensing requirements. So that would be, as she stated, 1 per 4 residents. And then in 1032, it does state that a group home with 9+ beds requires a conditional use permit in this zone. So the conditional use permit criteria, staff feels that it has been met based on the information that we were provided. The correspondence that we received, we did receive some public input with concerns that include potential of crime, lack of notification to the school, the school and parents that live nearby, not enough time to comment on the project, location of the facility in proximity to young children, the school itself, and bus stops. Then, of course, there were questions listed, but I think she may have covered the answers to most of those. I did get a message from the school district today that says we understand and support the need for treatment centers in Nampa. From the district's perspective, the proximity to Sherman does raise some concerns for the children that either have bus stops nearby or have to walk through that region. Code compliance has just asked that they gravel the auxiliary driveway, which it sounds like they've done. The engineering division does not oppose this application and had a few comments about access to Powerline Road and on-site utilities. So in this area, as stated, it is a residential area, and it is located well over 500 feet from Sherman Elementary. The parking will be calculated at a rate of 1 per 5 beds plus 1 per regular employee. The driveway is measured at 45 feet deep from the back of the sidewalk to the front of the garage, providing parking in the driveway for at least 4 vehicles plus their auxiliary parking. As far as public interest goes, group care facilities are a necessary service in our community. This project addresses the goals for care for special needs individuals as stated in our comprehensive plan. The proposed group care facility will not adversely impact the intended character and appearance of the general vicinity through the design, construction, operation, or maintenance because it will not change its residential appearance and has been in operation without incident since 2006. Again, I want to go back to the Fair Housing Act, which prohibits discrimination based on a handicap. And then for compatibility, it says by federal law, group residences of 8 people or less are permitted in residential areas. Due to this request exceeding the permitted 8 beds, additional compatibility criteria may be addressed. The existing group residence over 8 beds has operated in this location since 2012, and as a condition of approval of that CUP, vinyl fencing was to be installed, and she has indicated that she intends to put in privacy fencing according to that condition. So these are the conditions of approval as listed in your staff report. The proposed findings, for the criteria for the CUP, the proposed use is supported by the comprehensive plan as has been stated. The design and construction will not adversely affect the residential appearance of the neighborhood. The proposed use will be served adequately by the essential public facilities and services that already exist in the area. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. And the proposed use will not involve activities or processes, materials or equipment or operation that will be detrimental to any person or general welfare by excessive traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, or odors. With that, these are your potential motions, and I will stand for any questions.
Christie, I have 2 questions, one for you and one for the city attorney if he wants to wake up and get ready. Christie, the application is for 9+ beds, and the applicant stated they're going to have 16 patients, guests, whatever they want to call them. What happens if on Saturday night 4 more show up? Would they be able to take them in, or do they have to say, sorry, we only can give 16, no more?
Commissioner Kehoe, I believe that according to their license, they're only allowed to have a certain number. You'll have to ask the applicant when she comes back what her restrictions are.
Okay.
But I don't think she can take more than she's allowed to by her license.
Okay. And then in the packet, there was a reference to a Supreme Court case. You read about that?
I did, yes.
How does that apply to this particular residence?
Commissioner and Mr. Chair, it's a good question. The case that you're talking about is a case called City of Edmonds v. Oxford House Incorporated. And it really, what happened is the city attempted to use an occupancy restriction as a way of defeating an application for the city. And that the way that they did it was very specific. What they did is they didn't have any restrictions at all for the number of people that could live in a residential home, because they defined that as a family. But they put restrictions on non-family. And the U.S. Supreme Court said, nope, sorry, that you can't do that. That was a very narrow definition of the term family. The U.S. Supreme Court said, you cannot do that. And so that would be the case that I believe you're referring to.
It is.
Yeah.
So in that particular, or in this particular case, it would not have applied.
It would not have applied, correct, Commissioner and Mr. Chair. And one of the reasons is that Nampa currently doesn't have any restrictions on the number of persons that can occupy a residence.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair, I've got another question for while we're on legal stuff.
Yep.
Since Christie brought up the Fair Housing Act twice.
A couple of times, yeah.
Are our hands tied? Or are we opening ourselves up to some kind of challenge based on the Fair Housing Act if we deny this?
Commissioner and Mr. Chair, the answer is not necessarily. There are legitimate reasons where you could have concerns about this. What is prohibited? Well, let me back up and maybe give you an overview of the Federal Housing Act and then specifically answer your question. The Fair Housing Act comes in two flavors, federal and state. What it does is it prohibits land use policies or actions that treat groups of persons with handicaps or with disabilities in a less favorable way than groups of non-disabled persons. So that is what is prohibited. You can't treat a disabled person differently than you treat non-disabled people. That's what the Supreme Court was getting to, is this definition of family. They were treating them differently. Addictions to alcohol and drugs are considered a disability, are considered a handicap, okay? Now, local government may generally restrict the ability of groups of unrelated persons to live together. That's appropriate, as long as those restrictions are imposed on all groups, not just groups like people who are disabled or who have handicaps. The city hasn't chosen to do that. They potentially could and limit the number of people that could live in a particular residential home, maybe by square footage.
Can I interject one question? Sorry.
Sure.
So the Supreme Court case that you were talking about earlier was my understanding was that they were saying you can't say this many people live there just because they're not related. Was there also a disability aspect to that case, or was it simply because they weren't related?
Well, it was brought under the disability, the Fair Housing Act. So it was an indirect way that the city attempted to regulate this home that was that essentially targeted disabled people.
Okay, so the problem the Supreme Court had with it was that it was targeting disabled people.
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Just to continue answering your question. So a local government, planning and zoning, can restrict the ability of groups. It just can't be focused on that disability, right? Some applicants request reasonable accommodation, such as conditional use permits. It's illegal to refuse to make those reasonable accommodations only if that denial is based on the discriminatory categories. So for instance, if you said, I really have a problem with these people because they're alcoholics, and therefore I don't want to grant this conditional use permit, so my vote is no. That would be problematic because you are focusing it on the disabled category that is protected. However, there can be other legitimate reasons for being concerned, so long as it's not focused on that disability. What is reasonable? It's all determined based on the facts and circumstances of each application. It is a case-by-case basis decision. A helpful guide would be to ask yourself two questions. Number one, does the request impose an undue burden or expense on the city? One example could be the excessive need for fire department response due to the concerns that people with addictions might bring. That might be a legitimate thing. Does the proposed use create a fundamental alteration of the zoning scheme? And that's another question for you to ask yourself. So that's a summary of kind of fair housing law.
Mr. Chair, on that same vein, but there's a however in the Fair Housing Act as far as those that exhibit a direct threat to the public. If you have somebody who's addicted to drugs in this particular environment and they start using illegal drugs, then that's the however or the exception to the Fair Housing Act, if I'm not mistaken. Or somebody who is distributing drugs. Then at that point, the CUP really would be null and void. I mean, a complaint could come, we could cancel the CUP or something on that notion. It wouldn't be necessarily a Fair Housing Act violation because they're posing a direct threat to the public by their actions. Question mark.
Commissioner and Mr. Chair, there is an exception in the Fair Housing Act, the Federal Fair Housing Act, for types of direct threats to the community. So you would be correct.
And I think that's where a lot of them, and maybe just hold off, but that's, I think, where a lot of the concern is coming from the public, is that their perception that there is a direct threat.
Let's find out.
Yeah, so maybe we'll find that out. Public testimony.
Okay. Any other questions?
Commissioner
for staff?
Kirkman,
Thank you.
Yes?
could you speak directly into your microphone?
Okay, so I have to start all over again?
No,
Okay.
please don't.
The attorney as well, please.
I even had a motion on the table to say no.
I just, thank you, that was a very good explanation. Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to public testimony for this item. Madam Clerk, would you please read through the sign-up sheet?
We have 8 speakers signed up. First is Shandy Nelson.
Okay,
Second is
Nelson.
Garrett Nelson.
thank you. Ms. Nelson, come on up. Yep. Just go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please. You have 3 minutes to provide testimony, and go ahead.
My name is Shandy Nelson. I live at 819 South Florence Street. I would like to state that I am against the conditional use permit at 819 South Power Line Road. I'm against this house becoming an addiction treatment facility. I'm having a difficult time because I'm hearing what you're saying about the FAIR Act and kind of what I've written here. But if these gentlemen, 16 men, are allowed to leave, they are a direct threat to the kids, the bus stops, the families that are all around. So I just feel like I need to iterate that. She's talking about privacy fencing for the property. That's great. I don't have one. You can see from my yard all the way to Power Line, all the way across the street. A lot of us don't have fencing. And if we do, it's like the chain link kind of thing. So that's also to take in consideration. Can we hit that map back up of the area? Can you actually go 2 more to the right? That one. So this is the one that was sent. What you can't see on this map that was sent to, okay, so I live at 819, your arrow's on it, 1 down. So me and my neighbor got this, no one else on our street got this. We went door to door asking our neighbors their opinion. They did not know that this was happening. You're talking about this house previously and what it was allowed for. Last year we were sent a notice about a nursing home. So our residents around us thought that this would be a nursing home. And so then we're saying, no, they actually changed that. The wording on this, that original concept, addiction treatment. And so some of my elderly neighbors thought that it was going from addiction treatment to a nursing home. It was very confusing language for us. But when we went door to door, we had over 100 people sign our petition stating that the city should not grant the conditional use permit at this location. It's residential. Sherman Elementary is around the corner. You can't see it on the map they sent out, but it's above where it says RA. That's Sherman Elementary. Those parents were not notified. We went to the school. They had no idea. You have a bus stop on Almond and Amity, on Amity and Power Line, on Power Line in Dakota, on Iowa and Dakota. These are not just
elementary schools. They're like Charter Arts goes there. I mean, you want to put 16 men in this treatment home, catty corner from where the high school and the junior high gets let out. These kids are not supervised when they're getting out of the bus. Also, in this area, you frequently see kids riding their bikes, playing in the front yards, walking to and from school, meeting their friends to play at the park. It's a neighborhood and a community, as it should be. Knowing how close elementary school is and knowing unsupervised kids from all around are getting off the bus here, how can we as a city even consider rezoning this to allow 16 men with addiction and allowing up to 2 of these men be registered sex offenders? You're saying they're not going to have sex addictions, but I clarified with the city, and up to 2 registered sex offenders may live in this home because they're going to that 9+ beds. So that is, I wanted that just to be really clear and just reiterated that they can have 2 sex offenders in this home at a time. And you're talking about them going in and out.
Okay, thank you.
Your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, Mr. Nelson.
Hello, I'm Garrett Nelson. I live at 819 South Florence. I request you deny this permit. I'm coming from the angle that they only have the 4 parking spots, right? And they'll be taken up by staff. And they still have auxiliary parking, but we talk at my neighbor at 707 South Power Line. She's a first responder, and she says she frequently responds to places like this, whatever level. They have chest pains or whatever. And I spoke with the ambulance company, and they say frequently they'll roll out a fire truck with an ambulance at the same time on medical emergencies. And so there's no road there. You'd be blocking Power Line Road if you have to pull a fire truck and an ambulance down there. And I spoke with, 100 people. Everybody I spoke with was pretty much, but like, I don't agree with this. It's just in location to all the bus stops. And I just would say, why don't you notify all the parents of the kids at the bus stops and the Sherman Elementary? I think that should have been done, at least at the bus stops, because they're getting dropped off there, walking home, and their parents don't even know nothing. They just go down AMI, and they never see this sign in front of the road. I think, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next on the sign-up sheet.
Dr. J. Fierman and Harold Fierman.
Thank you. My name is Jay Furman, and I live at 829 South Power Line Road in Nampa. That's just one house from this location. I'm concerned. I'm a little confused because the lady said that there would be no sex offenders, but yet the lady over here says that there could be up to 2 sex offenders. I'm concerned about that. Then the house that's just between me and this house, by the way, I've lived in this house where I live now for 59 years. So I know the history of this part of the town. There was a sex offender who lived there. We didn't know that, but he did offend. He offended my sister and the neighbors and the neighbor girl. And it went on for months before it was discovered. That concerns me to know that there may be sex offenders there. I have 28 grandchildren, and I have 15 great-grandchildren, and they come to our house often. We have a pool in our backyard. They come to use the pool. We have family gatherings there all the time. 4 of my grandchildren live between me and that house. That concerns me that there may be sex offenders there. It also concerns me that there will be people who have had problems with drugs for many of the reasons already stated, but also because I have all of my grandchildren coming there, And there's not very much going on, very much protection between the two. I'm not too sure what type of fence she's going to be putting up, but I can stand in my backyard and look into their backyard, and I've done that many times and watched the people who have been there, who have resided there previously. One of the things that I don't appreciate among the people who have lived there before, even though I've been friends with some of them, is the language that they use. Because there's just 100 feet between them and my house. And I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate the smoking, because that drifts right over in our backyard. Nobody on that street there in that area smokes, except in this house. Yeah, I mean, it has in the past. I don't know if it would be now or not. But these are some of the reasons that I would oppose having this house be converted to the purpose for which they're suggesting. And I would suggest that it be denied. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Harold Furman. I live at 829 South Power Line. I'm not going to focus so much on the safety issues regarding around, but as far as the facility itself. So I am familiar with assisted living facilities. I'm familiar with long-term care facilities. And when a lot of the facilities say we have a patient to staff ratio of 1 to 4, that's during the day. So if they have 12 people there during the day, they'll have 3. So my question is, how many do they have at night? Because at an assisted living facility that has 16 beds or 16 people, many times they'll only have 1 staff member at night. And so for the they say 24/7, but what would actually be the staff to patient ratio or client ratio during the night? And then the other issue, yes, she said they'll have cameras and a fence, but what other safety measures will they have there? As Commissioner Kehoe said, what if somebody decides just to leave at 2 in the morning? I know on the property, so I live in my dad's basement because my wife and I moved there to help take care of my parents. I know on our property there's a lot of places to hide and hang out. Used to do it myself when I was younger. And so it is something where I've gone to the backyard before and have found people back there. I've gone down to the backyard before behind some of the outbuildings and found beer cans and stuff like that. We don't drink, I don't drink. They just magically appear.
They're your grandkids. I'm just kidding.
I know. So the question would be the safety within the facility, the safety measures within the facility. If someone were to leave, if it's not a lockdown facility, it's something I'm there because I want to be there, but tonight I don't want to be there. If I walk out, who's notified? And that would be the question, because if the yellow on the other bigger map, if the yellow is residential, it's all yellow. So there's a lot of residential area. Who's notified that somebody left? Especially if that person does have some sort of history with law enforcement, so to speak. And so those would be my concerns.
Okay, thank you. Next on the sign-up sheet, Madam Clerk.
Jamie Miller and Daniel Monte.
I'm Jamie Miller. We live at 928 South Florence Street. We are opposed to this. After doing a little research, the applicant submitted to the city that they're going to be a partial hospitalization program. Doing some research, the 2.5 care facility is actually considered an outpatient program, so I'm kind of wondering why they're considering it the PHP program if they are intending on them living there the whole time. And then she also stated that when clients are in treatment, they will be we will not be permitted to come and go. So what is their consider of treatment? Is it during therapy, or is it while they're actually living there? What is how long is the stint of them actually staying in this facility would be a concern. Along with many families, we have 4 kids that play. There's also a park that you go north on Powerline. My kids ride their bikes over to that park all the time. My son gets dropped off on the corner of Dakota. There's concern on them getting dropped off in the middle of the day at 3 o'clock and people possibly watching them walk home alone. And after they see this multiple times, they start to see patterns. They see kids are alone, so there's concern of safety. There's also concern of if they are administering drugs, especially if it's like a methadone treatment at all, or if it's a safe needle. There's consideration of our property values. So in the conditional permit 10-25-4.A4, that the purpose will not be detrimental to the economic welfare of the community. I did a little research. There's also a study that was done. This is in Virginia, but it was a large MSL database, and I sent this over to you guys to review. But we find that a neighboring treatment center is associated with an 8% reduction in nearby home prices. This is also actually magnified if it is a treatment of opioid addiction, which could be actually 17% reduction in our property values. You guys said most of this place is residential, so kind of questioning after looking at all your zoning. You guys have a bunch of different zoning. There is community business districts, there is health district, and there's also a neighborhood business. Guess it's just and this comes from the whole neighborhood, and while we were talking, we are not saying that we don't need facilities like this in Nampa. We're just saying maybe not here. Wondering why, if it's a partial hospitalization program, why it wouldn't fall under the healthcare zone, why it shouldn't be closer to hospitals, why it shouldn't be differently zoned, why are they putting it in the middle of a neighborhood with schools and parks all around it. And then also, the parking, if they're living there, are they getting dropped off? Are they going to be working? We have to have enough to come and go. So I guess that's our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Danielle Monte. I live at 115 Almond. I'm against this because of the safety issues. We live in a neighborhood that has 3 active drug dealers right now. I found a complete heroin kit in my front yard less than a year ago. These people are going to be able to leave this facility anytime they want and get drugs. We have problems as it is with the police controlling the people in the neighborhood closest to the park. There's several sex offenders that live in that area. I really think it's a safety issue. If they're not going to be locked in the facility, they can come and go, they can go and do drugs, they can go buy alcohol. There's a convenience store within a mile of that place. There is the traffic issue. 4-lane traffic. Somebody goes and does drugs, somebody gets upset, runs out into traffic, gets hit, things like that. There's really just lots of things that are concerning about this. We have the Vagos Biker Club that lives right around the corner from us. They're known drug dealers. What's to say these people aren't going to go down there and say, hey, buddy, I need a hit? There's just lots. It's going to be more problems for the police to control the unknowns and the actions of these people. And I'm speaking from experience. My brother is an alcoholic. He's been in prison. He's been in multiple facilities. And he leaves whenever he wants to, or calls my mom to come get him. And then he's free to do whatever he wants. This is really a bad idea for our community, for the schools, the parks, the traffic, the people that live next door. The man that lives next door has a beautiful yard, and he decorates it for almost every single holiday. Great things. What if somebody gets upset because he has all these cool things next door? Goes over there and breaks all of his stuff. The kids that live there. It's just really a bad idea. I urge you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Final speaker is Charles Martins.
Hello, I'm Charles Martinez. I live at 820 South Power Line, which is directly across the street from them. You know, it wasn't a really big deal with it being assisted living for the mentally handicapped. I mean, most of them are very sweet people. They just need help. This is not that case. This is where they're going to be treating drug addiction. She said this wasn't going to be a felony mandated facility. However, is it going to be a court mandated? If this is a court mandated deal, you know, you have people that are making, okay, I'm going to do drug treatment so I can plea down what I was originally caught for. You know, so do they really want to be there? Or is it a totally, you know, consensual, you know, hey, I have a problem. I'm going to get help. What kind of a facility is it going to be?
We'll ask.
Yeah. So if we've got those people that are getting court-mandated treatment, they don't really want to be there. And it's going to be a problem. You know. Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak for, against, or undecided? We'll start with the ladies.
Somebody else?
There was one in the back that had her hand up first. We'll get to you. Thank you. Remember to state your name and address for the record, please, and speak into the microphone.
My name is Beth Quiros, and I live on 1720, South Dewey Way, East Dewey Avenue, Nampa, Idaho 83686. And I just want to say that I do appreciate their work, and I don't necessarily agree with the gentleman before me said. I believe that they are kind people that are looking for help. I speak as a daughter of a former addict. I lived as a child through a lot of things, and I know that it can benefit them. I just don't agree with the location, just as my fellow people. Everyone around the neighborhood is family with a bunch of kids, barely starting. I myself have my own children, and I understand that we don't want to discriminate because we want to give them that opportunity for help, and I agree 100%. But I wish that it would just have been more thought carefully of the location of this place, because as people before me have mentioned, they're not going to be on mandatory lockdown. And at the beginning of her introduction, she said it's going to be limited. It didn't say prohibited on the drugs or alcohol allowed. So I don't know if maybe I heard that correctly, but I just would like for that to be taken into consideration, that if they wanted to, they could leave, and it does pose a danger to the community, to the children, to the school. Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. All right, next, right up front, please.
My name is Sochi Furman Ebert, 823 South Power Line Road, and we are your neighbors. Sorry, we have to meet this way. So yes, there's been a lot of action going on in our neighbor's home with different. We're going to have an elderly facilitated, what is it, assistance living, and I don't know how long that lasted, not very long, and then this came in, and I certainly understand the concern that our neighborhood has. I agree with everything that my father and my brother said, and I guess I would just really like some maybe clarification and some assurances, which I know assurances are hard to give, right? But I am also one of the ones who's confused about the sex offenders. I heard that there would be no sex offenders, and then that if there were, they would be limited to 2. So perhaps some clarification on that. Are they felony sex offenders, or were they charged with, felony drug use, or just some clarification on who they would be. Also, a comment was made about them being able to leave voluntarily. Maybe what is voluntarily? They get upset and leave, or what condition are they leaving in voluntarily? And then how will we as a community be notified about that? And then also maybe some clarification on limited use. I understand that when people are trying to recover from some sort of addiction, it's a process. It's not always cold turkey. And so, what does that mean? I understand that there's a privacy fence that will be going up, and our yard is large. We have an acre behind our home, and my parents do too. And as my brother said, it's not uncommon to find some things left behind from people who may have been there over the weekend or wherever. We've seen people want to just walk back through there and try to get over the fence. Now there's another privacy fence back there, so that also has reduced that traffic there. But there's still that concern of a privacy fence, and what kind, how are you going to, maybe your cameras, how are you going to make sure people aren't, or I don't know, somebody gets upset, they don't jump the fence. When they leave, do they get to leave outside and just be outdoors? Do they get to have to check out, check in? So those are some things that, just for our safety purposes, would be good to know. And just back to the lady that was just in front of me. These are good people with their challenges in life, and they need a second chance. They need help. I'm concerned about the location, but if this is the place that is deemed that it will be, we just need to have some safety precautions and make sure that as a community and as a neighborhood, we're aware, and we are clearly aware if somebody has left involuntarily or upset or whatever, just for the safety purpose of our community.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right in the back, I saw a hand. Come on up, state your name and address, and tell us what's on your mind.
My name is Sarah Tennell. I'm at 1204 South Powerline Road, formerly 1021 South Florence Street, so next street over. I think that my concern with this is, even though this may not be court mandated, maybe this is not parole, probation, people do want help, but people change their mind, and people can walk out. So my concern is for the safety. My concern is for my kids that go up and down from my house on Powerline up to my mom's house, who still lives up there, and the school, the stops, the bus stops, all those things. Everything that everybody else has said really has kind of hit my point. But one of the things that really gets me is the absolute lack of notification to every single resident around this house. That concerns me. And that, in my opinion, kind of rubs me wrong. I don't know that any of you guys are in charge of that, but that is a terrible disservice to your community. So again, I'm not for it. I'm not for it at all. I think it was fine when it was people before in the assisted living situation. This is not that, and I just don't think this is the location. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Yep, up front. Come on up, sir. Give us your name and address. I'll get you next. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Brad Ebert. I live at 823 South Powerline, which is right next door to this facility. And along with what my wife said, I too have concerns for safety for my family, as any father would. Because this is a voluntary program, and these gentlemen can leave at any time, when they do leave, my house is the first place that they might look for refuge, so to speak, if they're trying to hide out, or if they're trying to get, a quick hit or something, looking for something that they can't get where they're staying. And so that concerns me for my family and for my children and for the other children in the neighborhood and the other families that are across the street, that are next door to us and all around this area. I understand that these facilities are necessary, a necessary part of our community to help those that are in need, that are suffering from addictions. But I, like many of the others who have already spoken, I'm concerned whether this is the correct location for this type of facility. An assisted living facility is quite different than an addiction treatment facility, in my opinion. And I didn't have a problem with the assisted living facility when it was next door. Was the residents were not a concern, but I think this type of facility does cause a greater concern to me as a father, as a parent, as a husband. And the other concern that I didn't hear spoken about was that I was told that the front yard was going to become a parking lot, and I'm not thrilled about the idea of having a parking lot instead of a lawn in the front of the house right next door to where I'm living. I don't think that's a real great look for the property, and I'm concerned about that as well. And so I appreciate your time, appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss, come on up.
Thank you for your time. My name is Brenda. I live in 916 South Powerline Road. My concern, I guess like everybody else's concern, is the safety of not just a kid, but everybody. And like they said, everybody needs help. Everybody needs a second chance. The location. My concern is, what if they're in a crisis? Who's going to look for them? What are they going to do? And correct me if I'm wrong, they can't stop them from getting out. So if they do break out in a crisis, how are they going to help them? How are they going to stop them? If they break out in a crisis like during school hours when the kids are being dropped out of school, out of the bus stop, they could hurt their kids or they could even hurt themselves. So that is at least my concern. I know my kids are grown up, but I mean, there's other kids there. So, I mean, if they could find a better location, that would be great. Because like I said, everybody needs a second chance. And everybody deserves that second chance. And they deserve to be helped. But again, the safety, the school is close by, the bus stops are really close by. That would just be my concern for everybody's safety, not just, just certain people. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Yep, come on up. Then I'll get you.
My name is Montina Lee Siebert. I live at 823 South Powerline, right next door. And I guess I just want some clarification on how, if these residents are leaving and coming back, and I know that she mentioned there's not going to be like ad hoc visiting and just coming and going, but if they do leave and come back, how can we be sure that there's not substances coming back into the facility, and how is that being monitored? I want a little bit of clarification on that side of the security. If people are coming and going, how can we make sure that they're coming and going safely so that they're not a danger to, to those that are around? So, thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
Excuse me. My name is Zeke Johnson, 206 East Hazel, apartment 8 in Caldwell. I'm actually a person in long-term recovery myself. I think that this is a great idea. It did sound like there was a lot of fear from people in the community, and I get that. I heard the term "those people," and that really gets me. It's always those people until it's your brother or it's your sister or it's your kid. This could be a great opportunity to have people talk about what is that and have those talks with their kids. I've been a part of facilities like this before, and I assure you, and I'm sure she'll go into it, that there will be policies and procedures that cover every aspect of that, from when they get there to when they leave, to searches to make sure there's not anything like that. People really do need a second chance, and I've heard it 100 times, that they always need a second chance, but it's somewhere else, not here. If there's already drugs, sex offenders, and a biker bar, sounds like, or a biker gang, sounds like it's a perfect place for a treatment center. People could use help, so I urge you guys to approve it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can we take a 5-minute recess?
Sure. I wouldn't say no to that. We're going to take 5 minutes. We'll be back at 8:25. All right, I've got 8:25, so if everyone could take their seat, we'll continue the public hearing. Thank you. I think just checking to see if anybody else would like to speak for, against, or undecided on this application. Yep, come on up, since you're already up. State your name and address for the record, please, and then.
Yes, my name is David Kirkmo, and I live at 3510 East Homedale Road in Caldwell, Idaho. I'm a person in recovery, and I just, I understand that there's a stigma against addicts, because I am one. And I realize that people are afraid of addiction. They're afraid of what comes along with addiction and the choices people make in their addictions. But what they don't realize is a lot of these people, are just members of the community that are seeking help. And coming from somebody that has over 35 years of addiction and was able to get into a community like this and get help, and then be able to start turning around their life, because they had never experienced something like that before. They'd never gotten the treatment that you get in a facility like this before. And when you're able to go into some place like this, and you got people that care, and you got people that are, helping you to remember who you are, where you come from, remember your all your values, your morals, all these things, and become vulnerable to like what's going on in society, and be authentic. When you go into a place and you start learning and gaining back these values, it makes a difference. Yes, there's going to be people that are going to come in and they're not going to get it. But, those people don't go terrorize the next door neighbor. They usually got a plan to get the heck out of there because they want nothing to do with it. They're not, and I mean, the people that are going into these places, so I would say even if they were from like police or anything like that, these are people that need help too. But I mean, they have other, they're going through private party and things like that. So you're not getting the people from PNP and things like that. You're getting private party people. You're probably getting doctors, lawyers. You're getting vets. You're getting all kinds of people coming into these places that need help. They struggle with addiction. And so, these aren't people that go and terrorize little kids. They already stated that their policy wasn't allowing sex offenders.
That's time, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, we got you. Yes, sir, come on up. I'll get you next.
Good evening. I'm Devin Meller. I live at 427 North Old Park Lane in Eagle, but I'm speaking on behalf of someone who lives at 1805.
You can push that microphone
I'm
up.
speaking on behalf of someone who lives at 1805 South Paroline, south of, kind of down the ways a bit from where this is being permitted. Forget for a moment, we hear a lot about drug addicts and stuff. Many of them are seeking help, but keep in mind that under this provision, this is my understanding, that this is from what I've heard, they said no more than 2 registered sex offenders. That near a bus stop, what could possibly go wrong? When you add the drugs into it, we've heard a lot about drug dealers. When what happens if these sex offenders decide to offer drugs to a kid? Now you've got a rift between them and the parents. Are the parents not going to be able to find out until CPS comes in and basically says, oh, did you know your kid's doing this with, a sex offender? That terrifies any parent. This is why I strongly, and I give you the green light to strongly urge vote no, or at the very least say no sex offenders, because 2 is too many. I don't care if someone on drugs wants help. sex offenders are beyond redemption. And for that, I strongly urge you to vote no.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we move on, can I ask a quick question, maybe to our city attorney? And this is just more for decorum, I guess, in public testimony. Is there reasons why we should or could limit, maybe not limit, I'm thinking about the stereotypes, the stereotypicals, the disparaging remarks against individuals. Is that something that we can disallow in public testimony?
Mr. Commissioner and Mr. Chair, really people can say what they'd like to say. You can discount how much weight and merit you give that. I would also mention that we have heard.
Attorney, can you speak into the mic, please?
Oh, it wasn't me this time.
Since I'm looking this way, how about if I'll reposition myself? We have heard some valid concerns tonight. We also have heard little bits of stereotypical assumption and fears and even prejudices. If the commission gives those weight, that would be a concern for running afoul of the Fair Housing Act. And so I would encourage you, anybody can say what they want so long as they maintain appropriate, decorum. It's important for the public to be heard. The city of Nampa respects First Amendment, as I know all of you do, but giving weight to those sort of prejudicial assumptions will be concerning, that it might run afoul of the Fair Housing Act.
Great, I appreciate the clarification. So it's on us whether or not to take that. Got it.
It is.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the indulgence.
Sir, you're up.
My name is Tristan. I live at 819 South Powerline Road. I am the house manager there. I am speaking on my personal experiences in facilities like this. Without facilities like this, I would not be alive. With a facility like this, maybe my brother would be. I know that people see and hear a lot of things. They see things in movies that make you think like myself, who's an alcoholic, that I'm just, let's just call it the alcoholic, the person that nobody wants to be around, the person that gets secluded. But I can promise you that what we're trying to do and what I'm trying to do in my life is change what I've done in the past. I'm going back to school to become a social worker. I have a child on the way. I have a 15-year-old currently. And, and I have been open with my son, who's 15, about my problem. He knows that I had an issue with alcohol, and he knows that it doesn't happen to everybody. And I strongly can feel with the concerns and just the scare that people can have knowing that there's alcoholics and addicts living right next door. There's, on one side of us, there's a neighbor that I've become close with, to the point where if I need help with something, he just tells me where his tractor keys are. He knows I'm an alcoholic. He knows that I'm an addict in the past, and he has welcomed me into his home. He has welcomed me to everything that he has, and he has been loving and caring this whole time and has been very supportive when I've talked to him. And I strongly am for this facility, not only because it is something that I am a part of, but it is because it is something like this that has saved my life. And that's what I got.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak this evening? Yes, come on up.
My name is Jamie Martinez. I live at 820 South Powerline, just kitty corner to this home.
Can you pull that mic down just a little bit, please? Thank you.
I'm a little short.
That's okay.
I have a brother that was an alcoholic, so I understand they need help. I also have 2 boys, and everybody's talked about safety. If this goes through it will damage me financially also. I won't be able to sell my home for what it's worth, just because the studies show that the value goes down. I'd like you guys to consider that, because it's not just one or two houses that it affects everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Lady in the back.
My name is Yasmina Hambley. I live at 1522 South Florence Street.
Move a little closer to the mic. Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We've lived there for 10 years. We love Nampa. We try to stay in Nampa, shopping, fun, whatever. We love Nampa. The bike path is about 0.3 miles from my house. It's about 0.6 miles from this facility. Aside from potentially having people run into our neighbor's home, I don't know these people that live next door to the house, but the bike path is right there. I would not feel absolutely not safe having my kids walking over, riding their bikes. I have 4 children, 16, 13, 4, and a 10-year-old. That would not be, we would not do that. And like the previous person said about their home, when we bought our home 10 years ago, had this facility been there, we would have not purchased our home. My husband has been in law enforcement also for almost 10 years, and when I told him about this, his response was, we just don't want that here. He's obviously not here tonight, but in our conversations between him and I, we are completely against this. One of my daughters is at Skyview. I cannot say we have a drug problem at Skyview High School, but I cannot say that we do not have a problem there. There is an issue with drug use and young kids. This is too much of a risk. It's an open door for something that it's unnecessary. I hear this side mentioned quite a bit, support. Yes, I do want support. I feel for people that are struggling. That is not the question here. We are not questioning that. We want to keep our kids safe. We want you to have help, but not in a residential area. Isn't there another place in Nampa? If you want to stay in Nampa, where else in Nampa can we provide a location, a safe place for everyone? Another thing that I heard was a crisis or people with alcohol or drug use. I am not just talking about alcohol or drug use. I am afraid of people in a crisis, any crisis. You just lost your son, your daughter, you got in a car accident, any type of crisis, yes, because those people cannot function properly. So I am not necessarily talking about alcohol or drug use. I would really appreciate your consideration for our families. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Come on up.
My name is Anthony Montanino. I'm at 2801 West Aquamarine Street. I completely understand. I hear a lot of concerns and a lot of valid concerns. I've gone through a lot of addiction in my life. I now am a licensed real estate agent. I've been to prison. And I keep hearing the same things like, well, what if this person goes out and does this? And what if this person, I don't want them walking, these people, and I don't want them walking by, my kid walks down this path. And what about right now? What about the people these are people that are coming into a facility on their own accord looking for help, looking for actual treatment. How much drugs is out there in every household right now? And alcohol. Right now, the person next to you, the person two houses down, 3 houses down. What about all those people that are just wandering the streets? These are people that are looking to change their way of life, not people that are forced to be there. These are people that want some help and are looking to get it. They're not the type of people, like I would be more concerned about not having a place like this in the community, because these are actual people that want to change their lives for the better, not the person that blows up, has a blowout with their wife 3 doors down and something bad happens. Because this is a monitored facility that is going to be 24/7 monitored with people not just coming and going. And anyways, I hear a lot of the concerns, and we already have a rampant drug and alcohol problem in our community. And this is what we're trying to address, give people a safe place to go to try to get the help that they need, on their own accord. And I just urge you to pass this.
Thank you.
Can I take a minute? I left a minute on the clock. Can I just?
Nope.
Nope.
You only get one chance, sorry. Then we'll be giving people 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And 5 seconds.
I love 5 seconds.
All right. Last call for comments on this item, if you haven't spoken yet. Seeing none, we'll have the applicant come back up, and I took notes while people were talking, and I'm sure you did too, and if we could just address the concerns, answer questions, we might have some for you, some follow-ups as well. So we'll let you go first. You got 5 minutes.
I do want to say really quick, I appreciate everyone and your feedback and your concerns. This is such a deeply troublesome issue in our community, and there's no easy solution to any of it. And we get that. I know everyone else understands that. Like, this is such a big problem in our community, and it's so hard finding solutions, and I know how hard it is. I know how scary it is. I'm a mother myself. I understand everyone's fears and concerns. One of the things I would like to point out, there's still a lot of confusion about the sex offender issue. The sex offenders, the fact that there's up to 2 allowed, that is not us. That is the city of Nampa. There's a group home thing that allows up to 2 sex offenders, which means that home has allowed up to 2 sex offenders since 2012, when the original conditional use permit for 9 or more people was first granted. In addition to that, before it was really transitioned into a treatment facility, it really isn't quite a home anymore. There was always the possibility of sex offenders living there. So, and then to address the safety concerns about at night, there's a minimum of 2 staff on at night. As far as safety measures, we also do have alarms on all the doors and windows. They do fire, and they tell you which location has been interrupted audibly throughout the entire facility. So it's very clear if someone walks out, we will know immediately. And as far as crisis intervention, we do have crisis intervention. We have 24-hour on-call staff. All the employees are trained to deal with crisis intervention. As far as leaving voluntarily, the only 2 facilities that can prevent a person from walking out the door are prisons and hospitals where someone has been involuntarily committed. Anything else, you name it, if a person decides to walk out the door, you have to let them walk out the door. That does not mean that we are going to allow clients to walk in and out the door at any time. If someone chooses to leave, that's their decision, that's their choice. We're going to try to mitigate it to the best of our ability. We can't stop them from walking out the door. However, while they are in treatment and while they are participating in class, it is essentially a locked facility. There will not be people coming and going. Clients are not allowed to leave and come. The only way that they're allowed to leave is if they are accompanied by a staff member, and we provide the transportation for that, so they won't be driving. There are, at a minimum, weekly drug testing. If we suspect someone is using a substance, we can also drug test them according to our policies and procedures, which are very specific. So, and we can also do searches if we suspect that someone has brought in contraband. It's all very rigorously done according to policies and procedures. So it's really not going to be a bunch of random people running around on the street. They're there for treatment. They're there to sit in the class during the day while school is in or while children are going to and from school. They will be in the classroom. They're there to learn additional skills at night and participate in 12-step meetings. It's a structured, controlled environment that will be highly supervised. So, do you guys have any other questions?
How long do your clients stay in the home?
So the general, it depends on their authorization through their insurance. It's generally 14 days to 60 days.
14, so 2 weeks to
To 60 days.
60 days, 2 months. yeah.
That's all according to their individualized treatment plan, so.
Okay. So let's back up a little bit. I think you said in your original presentation that they come on their own accord, so they're not court mandated.
Right.
They're not discharged from, a prison system or anything like that. They're seeking you out to get help.
Correct.
They're not sent to you.
No.
Okay. What types of treatment do you treat with medications?
No. No, they will have, we do have medical supervision, a medical doctor, so they're going to have their regular prescriptions that they are prescribed for their medical needs, so.
Okay.
But it's more behavioral treatment?
The substance use disorder part of it is behavioral treatment.
Okay.
In addition to that, every human being has medical needs that need to be met, especially while they're in an environment like that. So we have a medical doctor that oversees both. And so, for instance, their medications, there are policies and procedures, so they don't have random ad hoc possession of their medications either. Those are locked and they are dispersed at certain times, but those are the medically necessary prescriptions that they need based on their doctor's advice. So.
Okay. So I understand the city code on the sex offender issue. Do you, if someone came to you and they had that on their record, do you background check that record or?
Correct, yeah.
And if they have, do you screen based on that?
We screen based
background
on
that they
violent
provide you?
criminal histories, severe mental illness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone came and they were a sex offender, would you disallow them treatment, or would you let them in if there were only another, if there were none in your facility at the time?
No, we would disallow. Yeah, we can do that. Violent criminal.
Mr. Chair, just a little clarification on that. So sex offenders aren't always violent. So when you say you're not going to allow sex offenders into this facility, is it all sex offenders, or you make a distinction between sex offenses?
It is my understanding that we can, as far as violent criminal offenders and sex offenders, that we can, based off of the direct threat to the community, we can make that determination and not allow them.
So, okay, I want to drill down here just a quick. So is there a chance that a sex offender could be in this facility?
I'm not an attorney, so, but no, according to the policies and procedures that as they're written, anyone who poses a direct threat.
Okay, because typically when someone hears the term sex offender, they immediately go to the worst possible scenario that a sex offense could be. But theoretically, if you're caught peeing in the park,
yeah, true.
I mean, honestly, you could be theoretically a sex offender, quote unquote. So that's why I want to get, just because it's a concern, and we've heard it from almost everybody in public testimony. So and I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I think it needs to be clarified as much as possible. And maybe you have clarified as much as you can, I don't know. But is there a chance that there could be a sex offender? And I guess, let me explain that a little bit different. In the worst possible way that a sex offender could be with children and so on and so forth in your facility?
In the worst possible way that, no.
Maybe another way to ask it is being on the sex offender registry at all an automatic disqualification?
Yes.
Okay.
No, because, I'm not going to go any further.
that
I
was a
appreciate your answer. Yes, got it. And I think that should, that's satisfactory to me.
So if somebody were to walk out of the facility, I know you have policies and procedures, but does any of that include contacting law enforcement, telling them somebody's just left? I mean, I'm sure it depends on the situation, but.
Yeah, it does depend on the situation. So we have emergency contacts that we will contact if someone walks out and we can't intervene in some way to put them on a discharge plan. In situations of crisis, we have a very specific set of procedures that we need to follow that if they escalate, we will involve law enforcement.
Mm-hmm. I think that's everything on my list.
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is there only male or men that are going to be in the facility, or can it be men and women?
At this time, we are doing men only. We
Okay.
feel that co-ed probably increases the likelihood of, yeah.
Thank you.
I got a quick question for you. So if somebody does just decide to leave, they don't want to do it anymore, and a week later they want to come back, do you allow them back? Or once they walk out on their own before treatment's done, they're not coming back?
There's more than just us allowing them back. They also have to get pre-authorization from their insurance company or Medicaid. So and a lot of times there's multi-factors that come into it. So if someone were to come back and want to be back in, we can put them on a behavior plan and do things like that. And then they would also have to get another pre-authorization from their insurance company.
I think that was some of the concerns was with people was, they could be coming and going all the time. And I just,
Yeah.
if
No.
they were making a regular habit, it sounds like after a
Yeah.
couple of times, they're not coming back anyway.
Yeah, the insurance companies don't like that either. So.
Yeah.
Have you worked in a facility like this before, or, and owned one, or
I have not, no.
you haven't?
No.
Okay.
We have our staff that is far more experienced.
Sure,
but-
sure. I'm just wondering. It's a really
Yeah.
noble thing that you're trying to do, and that you're doing, I guess. And I just wondering what drew you to this endeavor. Why do you want to do it?
So my husband struggled and is now in recovery, and I know a lot of people, and I've lost a lot of family members, a lot of friends. This has become such a problem in our community, and I just decided one day, enough. If I'm not part of the solution, then I'm still part of the problem, and I just can't do that. And so, yes, it is a mission born out of trying to change the trajectory of our communities today. And I deeply resonate with everyone's concerns. I know what a terrible battle it is. I know the way that substance use disorder has affected my life and my children, and I get it. I get how complex this issue is, but I'm standing here in front of you today because I want to help. That's it.
Yeah, and I think we all appreciate that. But I'll save my comments for after we close the public hearing. Yeah. Thank you very much. Anybody else have any questions?
Quick, do you know how many feet you are away from Sherman Elementary, the property line?
I do not.
Staff, Christy, do you happen to have that? Not that it's imperative, but is it less than 1,000 feet? Is it more than 1,000 feet?
500 feet was it on the screen.
This is the 500-foot buffer around the property, and Sherman is probably double that, so I would say it's over 1,000 feet.
A little over? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Gardner and a second by Kehoe to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public hearing is closed.
Mr. Chair, before we, I think, get more into the specifics of this individual case, would it be okay for Rodney to talk a little bit about noticing? It's been a reoccurring
I was going to bring
thing.
that up. Yeah. I think an ordinance change is in order, but that's a lot of work for you to do. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know we can't say this is a sensitive topic, so we're going to extra notice this, right? We go by state code and.
That's correct. We go by state code and by local code. If we were to change code, we'd have to do it for every conditional use permit, right? I can't be in a position where I have to say, well, I want more people to be notified for this specific CUP than that one. I have to be fair. I have to treat everyone the same as according to code, right? So the discretion given to staff is not a good idea. Legally or ethically, and then in addition to that, we keep track of every property that gets notified from our office. We keep track of a list for every project. We can look back on these and see what was sent out. We do get return mail sometimes because maybe because county information isn't accurate. Maybe there's been a change since the latest county data has been provided. So I can't speak to why some of those people around there didn't get notified, but everyone within 300 feet is put onto that list, and we send out that notification to everyone. The second part of that is that we have a large 40 by 40 sign that we put on the property with details about information for each project. That usually will get people out, and that is the result of today. We have a room full of people, whether they got notified by mail, their neighbors, or through the sign on the property. Somebody found out about it and the word got out, right? The last thing is you can always sign up for public hearings on our website to be notified of any new scheduled planning and zoning related public hearing, and you can get notified that way. So we follow state code. If we were to expand that boundary, we can. It just costs more, and it's more time consuming. We have a staff member who's assigned to fold those notifications and put them in an envelope and put them in the mail, and that just is time consuming. So I have advocated to stick with a standard that's required by city or state code and that's in our city code. That's my recommendation, that we stick with that.
So on the website, is there a box to check, like, I want to be notified of public hearings that are conditional use permits only, or annexations, or just so they don't get barraged? So as a community member, you don't see everything coming through?
Can you speak to that? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
filter.
pretty sure if you sign up for those notifications, you get notified of everything that's on the agendas coming up.
Okay,
You can't pick and choose the types.
right. Okay. Interesting.
So to be clear, the circle on the screen is 500 foot, and you're required to do 300 feet. So It's a little bit smaller than what's displayed on the screen.
Direct notification.
To get him something.
300
mail.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, it's also in the newspaper. We publish in the newspaper.
What's a newspaper?
Yeah. Required by state law, we still have to put it in the newspaper.
I'm old school and I don't even get the paper anymore.
But I think the key is that it's applied consistently for all agenda items, no matter what, and I think that's a key.
That's correct.
Thank you. Ron?
Okay. You guys think? And lady?
I don't know, it is a tough one, but I kind of agree with some things that the people have said about being there voluntarily. If a person is seeking help out, are they really the type of person that's going to be a problem? Chances are probably not.
That was my thought too, is talk about having it more locked down. I don't think you want kind of facility that needs to be locked down.
Well, I think,
You know what I mean?
yeah, and I think a facility that is going to be locked down and have people that are forced, not by their will, that's a different story. Totally different discussion to have right now, but. I completely agree that this is needed in our community.
Yeah, I just wish it was in a different spot.
But then comes the question, what spot? What spot is the right spot?
The point that was made that like there's drugs in there's drugs in the neighborhood and people.
There's drugs in every neighborhood. That's the thing that's sad. I mean, talk to city police and you would realize really quickly that there's a lot that goes on that these community members have no idea about. We really don't.
There would be a place in the neighborhood where there's not and people are working on their problem.
Right.
Proximity to school, I mean, that's a.
I have a question for council. When you were talking earlier, you mentioned that there was legitimate concerns and there was crossing into fair housing violations. What's the line? Because how do you differentiate between a stereotype and a legitimate concern?
Well, I'm going to give you, Commissioner and Mr. Chair, I'm going to give you the answer that we give in law school which is, it depends, right?
There you go.
Typical attorney answer.
Right, yeah, exactly. I'll bill you later for that. It depends. No, the reality is that it's really hard, and it's on a spectrum, right? Whose concerns are valid? Well, all of them are. All of them are. And where you have to draw the line is what the law states about the type of consideration that you give to those comments. And you have to be careful because when you get into, like I said, those stereotypical, the prejudicial, when you get into discriminating based on the handicap of being an addict of alcohol or drugs, that's where fair housing steps in and says, no, Planning and Zoning Commission, you didn't do that correctly. So there's no real easy answer. It's on a spectrum of, useful, productive comments from the public to other comments that are just solely based on prejudice, stereotype, and discriminatory type views.
So if my concern is I don't want to live next to somebody who might have a breakdown, well, I could say that about anybody, but I could also say that's a stereotype of people who have an addiction. So I guess I'm painting the picture that you're trying to tell me to make my own mind up, but.
Yeah, there is no easy answer there. It is literally, I can give you general legal advice on the type of testimony that should affect your decision. Your decision-making is based on the totality of all that you see and all that you hear, minus anything that would be considered stereotypical, prejudicial, and therefore would violate the Fair Housing Act.
I don't think I got any closer, but I appreciate it.
Along those lines, on what we can use, as the one study that we were given shows that affects home values by 8%, which would be an economic detriment to the community. Can we use that in our judgment as affecting the community and not based on what the facility is being used for, but what it's going to cause, according to this study, 8% depreciation in the surrounding properties?
Commissioner and Mr. Chair, I would say this. There are a lot of factors that you can consider. For every study that's out there, we're going to find a different study that disagrees.
And there's one in our packet tonight that disagrees with that statement. And I can read it to you if you want me to. I mean, it was in our packet. It says it's not clear that this will adversely affect your property values.
Yeah, there was one.
And we get that all the time. And people all the time tell us that. And there's no definitive proof that it ever happens. And we've asked for people to bring it to us, and they never have. So if you've got some definitive proof that this will every time decrease your property values, we want to know. But it's speculation that you think it will. In most cases, it does not.
And I have heard it cited tonight. She actually cited the study, which is kind of impressive. But I'm not an expert on that. I don't know whether it will or won't. I can simply say that it's probably property value is a general consideration. And so I would say that that's likely acceptable so long as it's not property value based on a discriminatory category. And so where's the line there? I wish I could find it for you.
It depends.
It depends.
And I have a question on a conditional use permit. If a person violates the permit, does not follow the permit, we can revoke the permit, which has always been my kind of fallback to saying, I'm going to approve this because if you screw up, we're going to have a way to take it away from you, so you better be right all the way down the line, otherwise you're going to lose it. But I'm saying to myself tonight, okay, we'll give them a chance to screw up, but what if that screw up kills a child?
Yeah.
But we could say the same thing about some of the dog bills that we could say the same thing about some of the dog licensing things that we've.
Absolutely, yeah. How many dogs have to get bitten by the kid before it's...
And I guess I still go back to these people are here of their own free will. They're looking for help.
I agree.
They're seriously, they're putting themselves out there.
Yeah, see, and number two on the conclusions, that's a tough one for me to get over. I mean, they are looking for help. I think if they're looking for help, they're going to go where help is. And why put the neighborhood at risk if they're going to go find help in a different location, right?
Where is that different location going to be?
I don't know, but it could be better fit in a commercially zoned property or a neighborhood business or something like that.
And that's something that the city needs to work out. Rodney, we get this all the time. Is there any way you can make an ordinance that says that certain types of properties should be in certain types of areas?
We could almost make a code of zones.
Yeah.
Where we have certain zones for certain uses.
Rodney's head's about to explode.
I'll just say that we do have zones that do that. And a commercial zone would allow this type of use. However, it's not we're not building homes in a commercial zone and having bedrooms in a commercial zone. Like that's what's challenging here is they're looking for a facility that's a residential facility to live in, not a warehouse to put cots down. That's the challenge here.
The other two are in.
No, I think.
So
I wasn't saying that. I was saying because all commercial buildings don't look like warehouses and retail centers and things like that. I mean, you can carve a building up into multiple treatment rooms.
And you could.
And make that work.
Yeah, you could have that. We just don't have people requesting it. We're not in, as a city, we're not in a position to force development or to force a service of some kind. That's We have laws and code in place to accommodate requests of us, and this is a request. We don't have that before us at this time.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, just some thoughts that I've had. Most of what we've heard tonight are a lot of what ifs, like what if somebody got out? What if this happened? And I'm thinking to myself, along the lines of what Commissioner Miller said, right, that these individuals have come here seeking help voluntarily. They're there, they've worked with staff to create a plan that they agree with to stay there and to receive treatment. And my question would be, you could come up with any number of what-if scenarios for anybody else within 1,000 feet of that residence. Can you tell me that there's not another addict within 1,000 feet of that building that could just as easily come out of their house and do some harm to one of your children? They're not there, and these people are here voluntarily trying to get help.
And they've already gotten help from an inpatient facility already and are clean at that point coming into this
And
place.
so I guess that's my argument is how can you come here when these people have come in and they've met the requirements to submit for a conditional use permit, they're going through this process to try and do this, to be able to go in and say, without violating the Fair Housing Act, say, no, you can't do that, because it seems to me that you would have to go out and guarantee that there's not another sex offender within a decent amount of, from this facility, or another addict. Because they could just as easily perpetrate any kind of crime as someone that would be in this facility.
Mr. Chair, so I did a quick little search, and there actually are 92 sex offenders within a 1-mile radius of this particular site. With a 3-mile radius, there's 350 registered sex offenders. And and the reason I bring that up is that it's a perception. It's not a perception. I look at reality. The community is safer with folks in this type of a facility. Yes, they are. And based on my experience in 20 years of where I work, I absolutely know that the community is safer in a facility like this than they are on the street or even in a facility in a commercial area. There is great benefit to someone in recovery living in a home with bedrooms in a residential area. Now, I know also that freaks people out a little bit when they don't know, when they don't understand the situation. And it's not a transition home. It would be much different if there was someone coming out of prison on parole or on probation, court-ordered probation, court-ordered treatment facility. That is a much different, that is somebody who does not necessarily want to be in that home. These are folks who have started treatment. These are folks who need additional treatment. They're paying with their own private insurance, and they are being screened. We have assurances from the applicant that there's not going to be sex offenders there, and that is something that we can check. That is something that the neighborhood can check to make sure. I mean, and if it's a registered sex offender, they have to register. They have to show you where they're living, and you can look that up online. So there's ways to check that. There's checks and balances with this situation. I am 100% comfortable with this facility. And with one of the other hats that I wear, I'm 100% comfortable even in this location a little over 1,000 foot from a school. Because you're absolutely right. How many other folks in those houses in that area have addiction issues? Alcohol, drugs, domestic violence, whatever the case might be. I'm not excusing it. I'm not using that as an excuse. I'm just saying that's the reality. So and the other thing is with the Fair Housing Act. So to single this particular facility out because we may not understand or we may not agree with it or we're scared about the people who might be living there and the what ifs, that, as far as I'm concerned, is discrimination against I wouldn't say protected class, but certainly people with disabilities, discrimination against those people. My experience has shown through my profession and everything else, that this is the most safest place for these types of individuals to be with addiction issues in this situation, and I feel very comfortable with it. And, sorry, before someone was about to say something, I do appreciate the individual who brought up this study about housing values, because absolutely, that's one thing we hear all the time, and that's a concern for me too. That's one of the questions I would ask. Well, how does this affect the values? And the attorney mentioned that for every study, you could find another study. Well, guess what? It took me one click, found another study, and this particular study says the housing values are affected 3.4 to 4.6% reduction, and empirically has no effect at all on the housing values. So again, you can find a study to support any argument that you have. They're out there. So they're valid arguments. They just don't wash with me because we can find one that says otherwise. And I'll leave it at that. I think I hit all my notes.
So, Mr. Chair, I agree with most of what's been said here tonight by Matt and by Jeff, and I have a couple questions because Steve brought up the idea of revoking the CUP if there's an issue. Do we need to? Is that already covered under city code, or do we don't need to add any more conditions? Or what are your thoughts? Do we need to add a condition about safety and security?
I revoke it based on the conditions you put in.
Can we go to those
to
real quick?
approval?
So is it just the comply with all city codes? Would safety and security fall under that, or?
Policy standards in place.
I mean,
Do you
we
understand
don't
what I'm
have
asking?
specific safety requirements in code for this type of a facility. So if there's some additional safety-related things that you want to add to that, that would be a condition that I could use to consider if there's a violation.
No, I'm just saying, if there is an issue here, what's the pathway? I mean, I'm not assuming there will be, but there could be. What if there is there a pathway for the CUP to be revoked if we don't add any other conditions?
Again, I would look at these conditions and just say, if any of these conditions have not been met,
It would depend on the issue.
then
If it's
it could be
violating city
revoked.
code, it's covered. If it's violating city policies, it's covered. If it's
Okay, so let's say they get lax on letting people in and out of the building. Is that violation of city code policy or standard?
So it would be a violation. We could add maybe a condition that their policies and procedures and regulations are part of the conditions, because that's where they would find that. That's where you'd find that violation, in and out privileges.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like, maybe, I don't know if it's even appropriate to do that, but
I think you got to start watching what you do add to discriminate, and then you're back into the fair housing issues that can come back to bite you in the ass.
Typically, it's based on like complaints, right? If they get more than one complaint, then they have to go investigate. If it's a valid concern, then.
violation of the law.
So if there was a complaint that, hey, this isn't, what's actually happening at this site isn't what was presented at the public hearing, and we were misled, is there a path to
Absolutely,
revocation?
yeah. If what you approve tonight is specific enough, then, and they don't comply with what you are approving, then yes. Let's say, for instance, let's say they put 18 people in there, and instead of the 16, then that's a violation of this conditional use permit.
But even that 16 max isn't anywhere in our stuff, is it?
I think it's in the motion.
It's in
Oh, is it? I thought it just said 9+ in the motion.
Yeah, so the motion says 9+ beds, but the original concept is included in what you're approving. So, because that's part of the application, it's part of what was
So
requested.
since it's part of the application,
That's what you're approving.
that's what we're approving, and therefore anything in their application we can hold them to.
That's what they said that they were going to do.
I question that just a little bit. I mean, if I'm looking at this down the road and there's 18 people, I'm going to go to the approval letter and the conditional use permit to review those conditions that are placed on it, and I will look to see how many are approved. If it just says 9+ on the conditional use permit, I don't know that would be enough to issue a revocation. So I think you need to just be specific. If you choose to approve this, you need to be specific in your motion what you are approving.
So which of the things that we've heard tonight matter the most to us and we want to enforce?
Correct. I think that's the safest way to go. I'm looking at our attorney right now. I think that's probably the safest way to do it.
I agree. I think that is the safest way to do it. I would caution the commission on being careful of the conditions of approval that you put. They can, like I said, this is on a spectrum, right? And if it's challenged, a court could look and say, well, sorry, that was based on you've discriminated against people that are handicapped because they're alcoholics, and therefore, the act or the condition of approval is void. So I would just be careful in that. You could change it to specify, like you were saying, 16 beds versus 9+.
Yeah, that's not discriminatory.
That would not be. That's simply based on an appropriate number of beds for the facility, or so that wouldn't necessarily be a discriminatory category. But I would be very careful about your conditions of approval.
Right.
If you decide to approve it.
I'm wondering if it's even necessary, and maybe it is, but I don't know.
I think what I'm concerned about and what I would worry about is if we go to start trying to add additional conditions, we're presupposing that we know more about how this facility should be run than the people that are coming here to present it to us.
Fair enough.
Right, and that's where I would be a little worried about saying, hey, let's throw this on there, let's throw this on there. I don't know how to run a facility like that. They do, but.
Jeff, you know more about this than I do. So the overseeing agency for this is what?
Well, I think that was a question I asked as far as they're licensed. They have to maintain the credentials. Optum is a part of it. I'm generalizing here. Health and welfare might have there's sticky fingers in there a little bit. So there's a number of agencies, there's a number of organizations that will be reviewing this, including probably the city.
I guess the reason I ask is if we could just say something like stay in good graces with whoever is overseeing.
Agency violations.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't even have to be in the CUP, because if they're not, they're going to get shut down by health and welfare. They're going to get
That's
shut
true.
down by.
So it might be
Yeah,
extraneous.
I think it's just, as far as the 16, I'm not seeing it in this master application. Am I missing it? As far as the number of beds that
It's in the very.
I saw it.
I know it was in this initial one, it says up to 16, but I didn't see it in
So
there.
I believe that when Rodney called the applicant to get more clarification on what exactly they were doing, it was stated at that time, and that's why it's in the actual description.
Up to 16.
Up to 16. And that will be in the decision letter as far as the description of the project, but if you wanted to put it in as a
No, that
condition
works
of
for me.
approval.
I just wanted to make sure that was,
Okay.
that works fine.
Rodney, going back to the original CUP, which is not an issue tonight, but there was supposed to be a fence installed years ago. And we're telling them now to put that fence in. So if they don't put that fence in, that would be a violation of those conditions?
So that's a good question. I think we need to clarify that. The conditional use permit that was in before, pretend like it's never been there.
Right, exactly.
You gotta say, that is done and gone, and we are not even considering that at all.
Right.
None of the conditions or anything.
But I'm just saying that had that been true, that would have been grounds for revocating the conditional use permit because.
That's correct, because it was a condition of approval. That's
why we
correct.
need to be careful,
Yeah.
make sure these things are valid, not, like you said, how to facilitate the facility. We're not drug addicts or supervisors, or, so leave that to them.
We could put a deadline on that to say
I think
fence has to be in by the end of August of this year or something, so they have a
Or can you
significant
say-
enough time to put it in, but there's a timeline for them, and not like the 12 years that the
So-
other one never.
Yeah, Commissioners, it is not a condition of approval, so if you do want the fence to be something, you'll need to add that in your motion. A conditional use permit typically has 6 months to comply with whatever conditions, and if they don't pull a permit or comply with some of those conditions within that 6 months, it expires. If they go ahead and get their fence permit and they meet all of your conditions that you've put in, or the ones they can meet with a permit in that 6-month time frame, that locks them into place and they're good to go.
6 months seems generous. Could
Yeah,
we- do we have the leeway to require it sooner?
Well, they're not gonna, they wouldn't be able to go into business or open up until they get that, until the conditions of the CUP are met, which includes the fence if that's added.
Is that true?
They wouldn't be able to open the doors, would they, if we added that condition to the CUP?
We could certainly monitor it.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, you haven't done it yet, so hopefully.
Yeah, just be part of the
you're not
checklist. You got this, you
operating.
got this, you
I'm
got
not
this.
necessarily going to go knock on the door and say, do you have patients in here?
Well, you-
But we'll watch to make sure the fence
call
goes
them.
up in a certain period of time.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So it wouldn't matter either 6 months or 3 months or whatever.
Well, if we say that they can, if we approve the conditional use permit, what does it say? They got 15 days to appeal or whatever? So they can't do anything for 15 days? But when can they start operating if we approve tonight?
Once the conditions are.
Yeah, so the
are met.
conditions would have to be met. They'd also have to get their licensing figured out, so
But it's not 6 months. They can start before then, right?
Right.
if they build the fence and do all
So
the
that-
thing that you're
I
asking
think
them
it
to do.
just needs to be put in there that that's one of the conditions that needs to be in place before they begin operating, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good faith thing to the neighbors. I mean, they've already mentioned it, so let's show the good faith of this facility by putting it in right away rather than waiting till the last day to put it in. That doesn't show that you really care about what their opinions were. And you want them to be on your side, not against you.
So do we want to add the fence? Is that generally?
Yeah, Commissioner
Yes.
thinks so.
Good?
Yeah, we're all looking at Morgan.
For another question?
You saying I talk too much?
No, we're waiting for you to.
You do a good job, and we'd like for you to continue.
Some kind of a motion.
I move to approve the conditional use permit for a group care home, 9 to 16 beds.
Right.
In an RS6 zoning district at 819 South Powerline Road for Rihanna Montanino, with recommended conditions and proposed findings with the additional condition that the fence should finally get built.
Within 30 days?
No, just whatever the city's requirements are for timeline,
As a condition.
as a condition.
Or as conditioned, all right.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Morgan, second by Commissioner Kirkman to approve the conditional use permit with additional conditions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries. CUP is approved. And for the applicant, this CUP will become effective 15 calendar days from the date of this hearing, unless an appeal has been filed with the Planning and Zoning Department with the appropriate fee. No action should be taken on the CUP until the appeal period has concluded, and you must confirm with Planning and Zoning staff there's been no appeals. Okay? Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
You can check with check with staff. You have 15 days, 15 calendar days to appeal the decision. And, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Commissioner, I move to close the meeting.
We have a motion to adjourn. We have a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Turner, motion by Daffer to adjourn. All those in favor?
The motion.
Aye.
I made the motion.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, too bad.